All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Break the Rules live stream. I am your host, Lev Polyakov, and we are here today with the one and only Ben Avery.
I've been saying your name wrong for years, and you've never corrected me.
Well, I was trying to be nice, that's all. You know me.
And you make me look like a fool.
Ben Avery is here, and we are also here with Gnostic Informant, and we are here for the very first time with Sam D'Amico, who is a tech entrepreneur and creator of Impulse Labs, the greatest stove in the entire world. It costs $6,000, but I guarantee you...
$4,200 with the tax credit, by the way, until Trump takes that away.
Wait, Sam, why are you blushing? Lev sent me a video. It's amazing what you've been able to do.
Mm-hmm. It's quite amazing.
Wait, is there a joke here? Is there a joke? It's real, right?
It's real.
It's real. Not a prank?
No.
Now, even though we're going to be talking about the Shroud of Turin right now, and I will take this chance also to say that this podcast is also sponsored by Jam and Bean Coffee Company, jamandbean.com. Great coffee. They're working on a BTR blend right now, so if you guys go there and type in code word BTR10 at checkout, you're going to get 10% off and free shipping. So with that being said, we're going to be talking about the Shroud of Turin, but also we're going to be talking about the Impulse stove as well. And we want to figure out whether the Shroud of Turin is really Jesus Christ, as far as his body being in that shroud. And there's been all kinds of different scientific investigations throughout the centuries being done on this thing. So we're going to get to the bottom of this today, everybody. And we are going to be starting with Ben specifically, because I know, Ben, you're going to be a little bit on the defensive here, because both Sam and Neil, I'm not sure if you guys are in favor of this being actually Jesus Christ, but you were the inspiration for this, because I was hearing a Lemon Party episode. By the way, guys, if you haven't seen the Lemon Party, you aren't living. Go to Lemon Party after this. Anyway, on Lemon Party, you were talking about how you are more convinced now that the shroud is the dead body of Jesus Christ, pre-risen Jesus. So please tell us a little bit about that, and then we're going to open this up for the discussion.
Well, it looks real to me.
It works.
So here's the thing. If you look at it, maybe this is the power of Christ, is that the image of his face lives in our unconscious. So when you look at the shroud, you go, that is what Christ is supposed to look like. If you look at all the depictions of every painting and this and that, right?
Especially a 13th century France Jesus.
It's incredibly 13th century France
Jesus. Looks like
Jesus.
a French dude. Looks like a French guy completely.
Wait, let Ben. Right. Yeah, please.
I have nothing. It looks real to me. I don't know. It looks real. Look, the odds of something like that surviving up until now, when we have pretty much, I mean, even a guy like Shakespeare, we have almost no record of like any of his like actual thoughts or beliefs or anything. We just have like historical, and that's 1600. So like, how are we gonna have a cloth that a guy was wrapped in? But I will say that the shroud looks real to me.
Okay.
What about the screenshot you sent me? You sent me that screenshot with the blood testing and the pollen. Yeah. Can you go through some of that stuff? I want to hear about that.
Yeah, so that stuff looked like a bunch of junk to me, but it did. it did support the claim that the shroud was real. So here's the problem with people who think the shroud is real. So I grew up in the Church of Christ, which is a very small sect of Protestant Christianity. It is divorced from the Baptists. Baptists believe in you know about the Baptist church at all? It's like So I grew up in West Texas, right? So in the Church of Christ, everything was split. You know, people were you couldn't dance, you couldn't do anything, and you couldn't listen to instruments. There was almost nothing. I forgot why I'm on this tangent right now.
Well, it connects to your love of Jesus.
They don't like images too.
They don't like what?
Images. Most Baptist churches don't have a lot of painting. Like Catholic churches, you see paintings on the walls. You go to a Baptist church, it's just a cross. There's no images. Yeah, I think is that what you were getting at or no?
Yeah, because where Christ is silent, we are also.
Right.
Yeah.
So was there maybe something about the fact that there weren't any images that got you interested in images of Jesus and trying to?
There were no images, but yet we all still, when you close your eyes and you pray to Jesus and God, you still imagine a guy, right? Like, like when I read the King James Bible, I still picture a guy getting thrown out of the synagogues.
Sure.
But what did the guy look like to you when you were growing up, if there weren't any images?
He was fucking hot. He looked I mean,
Mel Gibson incepted the imagery into you, probably based on pop culture.
I wasn't allowed to watch that. That was a big no-no.
Really? Wow. Is that because of the Catholic thing? Because is he Catholic?
Yeah.
Okay, so that may have had something to do with it again, right? Any depiction of Jesus.
Everything, when I look at the Catholic Church, all I think about is like, it seems satanic to me. And I'm trying to divorce myself from that idea because I don't think that's very fair. It looks like Satanism. The hats, the crucifix is very offensive to me. The cross is not, but the crucifix is. It seems wildly offensive. But
Neil,
wait,
yeah,
by the way, Lev,
yeah,
is because we had scientists come to our church. This is what the point I wanted to make.
Okay,
we had scientists come to our church, and they talked about how carbon dating wasn't real, and that dinosaurs lived in the time of Christ. And they quoted the Leviathan scriptures, which you guys are all familiar with, the behemoth and everything.
Yeah.
And then they said that, remember when the sun, God stops the sun so the Israelites can win that war because they need daylight for like 7 more hours?
Yeah, book of Joshua.
Yeah, a scientist came to my church and told us that scientists were able to track the path of the sun all the way back until that time. And they proved that the sun actually stopped for 7 hours, and the scientists had no idea why. And he goes, but I know why, because in the book of Joshua, it says that. And everyone goes, truly, he was the Son of God. Like everybody.
Amen.
Amen.
You hear in the background, amen now.
Amen, brother.
Wait, Neil,
that's the science I grew up with in church. So anytime I can find science that proves stuff that I want. I can find tests that a guy in a lab coat did that proves that like gay people go to hell. Probably. Do you know what I mean?
They'll find it. They'll find it.
You'll find it.
And Neil, you grew up with a similar church, or were in a similar church, right?
I didn't grow up in it. I actually went into it when I was getting into Christianity. I started going there. I started going to Baptist evangelical churches. So I know exactly what he's talking about. Yeah.
And in that church, it was very heavily anti-Catholic. They also saw the Catholics as Satanists.
Right.
And now that you had a chance, like for those who are living under a rock, Neil, Gnostic Informant, as somebody who had researched religion to an incredibly high degree, would you say they're true in a way? That there is an element of what could be considered Satanism if you were to, maybe stretch out the word Satan a little bit within the Catholic Church as far as like paganism goes? Because at the end of the day, a lot of that stuff is paganism, whether we're talking about the hats, the cloaks.
If you define Satanism as Romanism, then yeah. If you think Romanism is like pagan, then yeah, they still continue to do a lot of their Roman imperial style, top down to the bottom, the way they run the church, the way the priests dress, the staffs they hold. Some of the chants get sort of carried into the mix.
It's cannibalism. They believe it's actually his flesh when it enters their mouth, the communion.
They do.
So they worship a dead man. They eat a dead man. It's very strange.
They get that from Augustine, Augustine's arguments and so forth. But no, if you define, I would just say for that to be true, you'd have to define the Romanism as Satanism, and then it's like, okay, then yeah. Other than that, though, I would just say I don't know. They're all just different Christians with different views of the Bible.
Well, they probably considered the ancient Romans to be pretty satanic versus versus what happened afterwards. But anyway, getting back on the shroud, what exactly is the shroud considered to be by the Christians who believe that this is evidence of Jesus Christ? Sam, you've been looking at the shroud for a pretty long time. I know that
couple months,
pretty long time. Well, all I know is that our mutual friend was talking about how much you are, just like so into this shroud and figuring out what it's about. So just tell us like your story with the Shroud, how you got interested in it, and maybe then we can pull up some of the blog post articles here and see what exactly is crack-a-lackin'.
So I think I'll admit I am on Twitter way too much, and so I think I saw this tweet from this guy Zoomer Alcibiades, like a couple months ago. This is like August or something like that, and this tweet was like, either the Shroud of Turin was real, or the ridiculous thing with the Shroud of Turin is either it's real or someone invented photography way before photography was ever documented in the historical record, which was immense bait for someone like me. So like, I'm like 3 mezcal Negronis deep at this awesome bar or awesome Mexican place down the street in Lower Haight called Otra. I'm like feeling a little mischievous. And then I see this tweet and I'm like, okay, I used to design cameras for consumer electronics devices. Let's imagine I was in the 1250s and I wanted to make a Shroud of Turin. Do I need a lens? And I realized something, which was, what was the pinnacle of art at that time? And it was stained glass. People were painting and glazing full-scale images, often of Jesus, at the exact same time. And if you just had held a cloth up against it, maybe over time, over days, weeks, months, the ultraviolet light from the sun would get filtered by the window, and then it would impress an image on the cloth. And I'm like, that actually seems to make way more sense than any other explanation I've seen. And so I kind of came up with, I thought this was like a stained glass explanation, basically. It's like someone, like a stained glass artist went and built a full scale image that effectively is like a negative image of the Shroud. Well, the Shroud itself is a negative image. They built a full scale positive image of Jesus Christ, put a cloth against it, hung it up, waited a while, pooped out a Shroud. And it, in a sense, is invention of photography, but there's no lens required. There's no, and the critical part of this is actually makes it a lot easier chemically to make an image, because you get a lot more UV. It's almost like the aperture of the camera is the size of the window versus like having like a pinhole and needing some super sensitive, photosensitive material or something like that. And like they already knew about bleaching linen. Like that's been something we've been doing for millennia, et cetera. So I'm like, okay, this is, yes, you got this thing pulled up. And then I'm
so
like,
yeah,
like 12th century, 13th century France. Look at these windows that these guys did made. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So as any tech bro curious about a historical mystery in the Indiana Jones sort of variety, I go on Signal and I DM at Nat Friedman, because, you know, he's the master of deciphering the scrolls from Herculaneum. And I'm like, okay, Nat, this is random, but, and we agree to basically, we're going to both fund like an intern to go investigate this. He also, guy and his team goes and actually goes to, I think, this church exactly, and measures some UV light samples inside. So we actually figure out like, hey, like,
and this is a Saint Chapelle in Paris for those who are listening.
So we go and figure this out. We're like, okay, it's probably a decent amount of UV transmission through here. It'll probably work. So, and also, by the way, in the 1200s, imagine you wanted to like flex, and you're like you're a French king. You want to flex on your rivals. Well, if you, and this is like the prototype of what became kind of divine right and all this other stuff. You would want some holy relics. So there was a really good business for holy relics. And maybe you're like, I don't know how sociopathic these guys are versus religious or whatever. Like, you know, I'm not going to put my head in that mindset, but you could imagine that there'd be a pretty good market for fake relics too. And so, and decent amount of money involved there as well. So so I'm not saying that skull was fake, but, you know, it's probably not Mary Magdalene's skull. It's probably just someone, you know, there's probably some troll dug a woman up. But yeah, so then the next thing I was like, let's actually replicate the results. So I was like, it's ultraviolet light, right? So as someone who got into every weird COVID fad, including like baking bread and all this other stuff, I went and bought some linen, and I went and had a UV aquarium light bulb. And I went and basically proved that you can form an image on linen by selectively exposing it to ultraviolet light. So you actually can see it on this one probably better than.
Oh, let me
image.
make a closer one of you. I just got to figure out how to do that. 1 second. Here, yeah, people could see it on the in the
Yeah,
thumb
so I
here.
basically just put some stickers over this thing, and then I chucked it in underneath the UV light, and like literally an hour or two later, under
Wow.
intense UV light, you
So
get
you did sort of demonstrate that you can do this.
You can do this, yeah. And then I also did it with actually sunlight by outside. It's not as visible. I was too lazy, so 2 days it was not visible enough for me to show on stream. But this is like 30, 45 minutes of like UV sterilizer light bulb, and so basically figured that worked. And then I got an interesting ping because so Nat had basically posted a like
By the way, I just want to say this real quick. The Greek words that make up photography, photo, graphe, just means light graph. So technically, by definition, that is a photograph.
This is a photograph. Yeah, it's a photograph.
Sorry.
It's a photograph with a zero magnification lens.
Yeah.
So, and the other point is like because the image has to be physically formed on the surface. So to make that actually in focus, you have to move the mask basically directly onto the surface to make that work. So we got a ping from someone else, which was this other tech founder was plugged into kind of like the evangelical circles. And he was like, yeah, some guy I like either we went to college with him or knew him from back in the day. I think it was like I'm trying to remember if he was Liberty University or something like that, but he's out in Idaho now. But this guy, ND Wilson, who is a, religious writer, basically. Like he's not a like atheist debunker or whatever. For the same reasons that you guys mentioned earlier, like in terms of kind of a anti-iconography view of like, more serious Protestant groups and stuff like that. He was like, the shroud's definitely fake, and he goes and replicates it. He realizes something different than I did, which was you could just paint on a window the shape. And what we both realized was the window, the distance between like where the paint would be, the thickness of the window, and then where the cloth would give you the parallax to make the shroud look kind of 3D-ish. And he actually went and simulated this at different angles where he let the sun traverse at different angles and confirmed he could get the exact same shape as the shroud. So you actually can see his replication there where he just straight up painted on a window pane and like duct taped some linen against it. And
he made that?
He made that, yeah.
Oh, wow. So people can reconstruct this. Why does everyone say this can't be redone?
No, so he got like, I think basically he did this in 2005 and it was just incredibly hard. I think keeping a website SEOable for 20 years is extremely difficult. But then the second thing was he got debunked by some like, let's call it, I think we were more deferential to experts back then or something like that. And some of the experts were like,
yeah,
let's call it true believers, basically.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
Yeah. And so what was actually funny, if you guys just scroll up on the blog post, there's a bunch of these like shroud experts that exist. And this one guy, I think you go up a little further. There's this guy who's like, literally the image of Jesus looks identical to like 12th or 13th century paintings.
Is it Jeremiah Johnston? Jeremiah Johnston?
I'm not sure who this guy is.
He's one of the names that comes up in this discussion a lot.
Yeah, so he's like, look, it's the same like little squiggly of blood. I'm like, yes, it probably is the same little squiggly of blood because these artists all drew Jesus the same way at the same time in the same region.
Right.
That doesn't mean that, Jesus looked like that. It means that these are contemporary art.
And let me just comment on that real quick, if I may, Lev. The earliest, the top 10 earliest images, if you find them all and put them all in one spot, you'll find 9 out of 10 of them are a beardless young guy, usually holding a wand in his hand. Not this like older bearded dude that you get in later. There are some early images where he does have a beard, but most of them, I would say 90% of the first 300 years of all the, so if you take all the first 3 centuries of images of Jesus that exist, you're gonna find that's probably like 4th or 5th century, I think, that one right there. But if you go back to like 3rd century images of Jesus, he has no beard. He's beardless. Type in oldest images of Jesus.
All right, let's see what we got here.
There you go.
Okay,
See,
this guy.
That's it. You get there's a lot of them like that where he's just a young kid basically beardless, and there's so many of these.
I mean,
Right.
this is.
Right.
I mean, there's a good joke about this, which is from like 21 Jump Street, where they go to the various ethnic churches, and they're like, oh, they go to a Vietnamese Catholic church, and Jesus looks Vietnamese, and I'm like, that is.
In the Ethiopic church, he's black there because
this is why every church does this. It's not That's
why in France in the 13th century he looks like a white dude with a blonde beard. But the point I'm making is, if you look at the earliest images of he's got this. He's not shaven, or he's shaven, and he's holding a wand usually. And I'm just saying, like, how do you go from that to being all of a sudden the norm is this bearded guy that we all see in the movie from Passion of the Christ. You know what I mean?
I like this comment over here. Agree, LOL, from Black Jesus Christ,
nice.
Who, by the way, was not just watching this particular stream. I saw Black Jesus Christ in the last one that I did too. So he's here for the long haul. Thank you very much for watching, and be sure to subscribe and like.
Anyways,
and
I cut you off though. I just wanted to make that point though, is that that early on the norm was not the bearded dude that we all think of today. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, no, I think it's almost like and I think that's like totally fine. It's like our depictions of Jesus are like contemporaneous or more contemporary than people want to necessarily say, because again, part of this is I think there's an attempt to kind of make sure that these stories stay relevant, from a religious context perspective. Like it's not like oh, I'm going to debunk the true visage of Jesus or whatever. It's like I'm not interested in that, but like people, it is closer to the the pharaoh and that slot machine thing that looks white. Like it's like,
oh yeah, we are kings.
Yeah. So yeah, it's close. Basically, the point that is that joke and like the 21 Jump Street jokes actually refer to in some sense, and like a real trend that's existed for centuries. And yeah, Jesus looked more Western Roman, and then he looked more Eastern Roman, and then he looked more like Northern European, and then he looked like a Germanic settler to Utah territory.
Right.
But you get the idea.
Yeah. To be fair to the Egyptians, though, they did find like this pharaoh with the red hair and all that, but that's like a whole other discussion as far as ancient Egyptian DNA.
I didn't mean to derail you though. I didn't mean to derail you on what he looked like, because you were saying something before, right after that, and I kind of just wanted.
Yeah. So basically, like the contemporaneous like paintings and depictions of Jesus, a lot of them do like the Shroud is like of that same appearance tradition as like the 12th, 13th century French depictions of Jesus, basically. There's another thing that's worth describing on. So N.D. Wilson does this replica, and he basically does a full up window of this. There was actually a piece of technology that enabled this to work. And so I think if you go look at, if you scroll down a little bit, there's the glass question. So I was thinking, how do you make a big window in 1250? And I was assuming you had to make stained glass, and you had to basically like hammer these little like kind of joining pieces of lead between them. And then maybe you'd have to figure out how to defocus it enough so that those weren't visible on the final image or something like that. So you can kind of scroll down and see that. Turns out not required. And you actually can, if you poke around enough, there's actually the history of Windows is a really interesting thing to go deep on. And so prior to, I don't know, like 1100 AD, something like that, the way you'd make a window, there weren't really windows at the same level. You basically just spin a disc of glass and it would flatten out. And then you'd have this like not very clear chunks of glass that you would like form into windows basically. And you'd get like very small pieces. But what happened in the French-German border, they figured out how to basically, you blow a tube of glass and then you cut it open and you like unwind it. And this video is awesome. It actually shows them doing the complete process. And this is how basically they made windows from like, I don't know, like 1100 to 1880s, or like it's basically until we kind of figured out different industrial processes for this. So you end up making these cylinders and then you end up unwinding them like that. And you end up getting, pretty dang good flat glass. And we went and poked around and I was like, yes, you can actually get this at the dimensions of a human figure. And if you couldn't, you could also hide it through the folds of the shroud and all this other stuff. So you
What
bake
do
the glass.
guys who glow glass look like Buck Angel, by the way? What is that?
Let me see. He does kind of look like Buck Angel.
There's some weird, like, sexual undertone to blowing through a big, long metal piece of pipe.
Right?
For those who don't know who Buck Angel is, by the way, Ben, could you tell the good people who Buck Angel is?
I don't. By the way, so.
He's a guy with a pussy. That's all.
Yeah, so he is a woman who then ended up becoming like a man as far as all of the features one would expect a man to look like. You know, like the burly beard and the bald head and
But he's
the
also
chest
very
hair.
he's also very outspoken, like against some of the more extreme.
Yeah, the trans ideology stuff. Yeah,
It's very I don't know.
yeah.
He
Well,
should have to take Angel out of his name.
Right.
Buck Devil, I call him.
Well, I don't think that he is that Buck is broken though, because he seems to be somebody who is living his best life and doesn't encourage anything of that nature to be inflicted upon young people and all of that. So I say live and let live, and I'm an individualist. But anyway,
Christ is king.
Well, when it comes to Christ now, Ben, what has this particular part of the discussion changed maybe in how you perceive this shroud?
You find what you're looking for in life, and these gentlemen here are haters, and they want to disprove the existence of a historical Jesus or a metaphorical Jesus, whatever. They are doubters of light. They seek to extinguish my flame, and I'm not going to let them do it. The Shroud of Turin is real. It's real, and it proves the existence of the Jesus that I have created in my mind.
Now, could you tell a little bit more about the Jesus that you create in your mind? Like, what is Jesus to you?
Well, I don't know, because I've been reading the Gospels, right? And in the King James, which, Neil, do you should I read the Geneva Bible instead of the King James Bible?
No, not the Geneva Bible.
Well,
I was told the King James Bible is the only valid Bible, though, based on
that's what my old church. That's what my old church.
Based on the dinosaur. I could have ridden a dinosaur into the sunset.
Right. Yeah.
But isn't the King James?
Those Baptists love the King James. Baptists.
Yeah.
But it's weird though, because the King James Bible, that's also the one that allegedly was written by William Shakespeare.
Right. That's one of the conspiracy theories about it, because Shakespeare was in the court of King James. He was there in that time, in that decade, in 1611, when
clearly the S tier writer of that era.
I mean, like he probably was around, and Francis is it Francis Bacon? Which Bacon was it?
Yeah, Sir Francis Bacon.
Francis Bacon was alive during that same decade. There's a lot of famous writers in that decade,
and they say they may have been the same person too.
Some people say that too, right? Yeah, there's a lot of crazy conspiracy theories. And by the way, you want to hear something crazy about the King James Bible? Which Psalm is it? One of the Psalms. I can't remember which one it is now, but it's the year that Shakespeare died. How old he was when he died?
I believe he died when he was 52 years old. I believe in 16.
I think it was Psalm 52.
I think, or 1615.
I think it's Psalm 52 then. But it's been a while since I've even looked at this. The King James Bible has 52 words into that psalm. The word "shake" from the top. And then 52 words from the bottom is the word spear. So people go, Shakespeare died when he was 52. 52 words from the top is the word shake. 52 words from the bottom is the word spear. He put his signature in the Bible. That's what they say. 46. There you go. I couldn't remember what number it was, but that's what it is.
So when it comes to Shakespeare writing the King James Bible and encoding it in all kinds of various ways, one would think that that's also kind of satanic in a way, having a man, a mere mortal, exert his influence on the Bible. And if we assume that he was also Francis Bacon, that leads us to The New Atlantis, which is that book that Sir Francis Bacon wrote, where there was this island where they were putting up statues of scientists, and it was like this secular paradise, something that a lot of the eggheads today would want to be enacted. I know, like Sam, like you live in the
By the way,
island.
King James was bi.
Yeah,
King James was bi.
Ah,
he had a boy lover.
Very
And
progressive.
Apparently, he
first
wrote
time.
one of the books that he published in his own name was a book on demonology. It has all the names of the demons in it. So he was into demon shit.
Wait, wasn't that with Queen Elizabeth's court? There was that guy, what's his name? The wizard for Queen Elizabeth, who was the original 007. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Not sure about that. I think I've heard about that.
I'll pull him up later. But anyway, Sam, you are in San Francisco, right?
Yes.
So you are in the belly of the beast of all of this corporate technocracy. What do you see as being the influence that drives a lot of people to create? Because we were just having a stream not too long ago about Donald Trump and Elon Musk and whether we're headed into a golden age or going into some horrible technocratic dystopia where a lot of these techno elites want to be in control of people and monitor everything that's going on. And we recently had Larry Ellison in there also with Trump, and somebody pulled out a video where he was talking about wanting to keep track of everybody. So what is your sense on the ground? Is it mixed? Does it go like one way versus the other as far as do people there want people to live in freedom, or do they want to control everything?
That's a fun set of allegations.
I give you room though. Like I give you room to say that everybody wants freedom, you know, like
no. So I would say that this is probably the most interesting. It feels like I would describe San Francisco right now as like there's this like weird ideological crossroads going on of like there's actually more resurgent like religious affiliation than you would expect. Like that's one thing just to throw out there. But there's all additionally, and this is the thing that I've been kind of most fascinated by, and I would describe myself as like a militant atheist in this direction, which is there's these group houses. And they all have different like views on like AI taking over the world. They're all like eschatological group houses in some sense, where they believe in like the rise of the dark machine god, and different groups. Yeah, but different groups of these houses. Well, they all kind of disagree on the exact implications of this. And some of these are like formerly like effective altruist spinouts that got obsessed with like the only thing that matters now is AGI, ASI. And because that's gonna be the only thing that matters at a certain point, because we're like in this sort of like short timelines AI takeoff situation. So in some sense, there's like, I am the high priest of the new machine god. And by virtue of me and my circle of friends in my little niche group house cult being, you know, the correct ones, this machine god will spare only us or elevate only us.
Just like every other religion says.
Yeah, no, it's but I would describe this as like eschatological Protestantism, but like I don't know if you guys played like Mass Effect or whatever. It's like, you know, it's like, you know, my neighbors are like worshiping the Reapers or something like that. It's like this weird.
That's crazy.
It needs to be turned into glass, man. It needs to just be wiped off.
Well, so there's that, and by the way, a bunch of these people. By the way, a bunch of these people are incredibly wealthy now because they all joined AI research labs like 5 years ago, not 2 years ago. And the comp plans, as you extrapolate them, are now into the, you know, this is where, you know, like they say Bill Gates' secretary made like a couple $1 million. It's like, no, it's like random 23-year-old software engineer, you know, makes $50 million or something like that. So there's this sort of stuff is getting out of proportion and crazy. Now, that's like one thing. That's like one of 20 things I could rant about that's going on here. And then there's kind of the like, let's call it the tech. Let's call it the like anodyne tech bro situation. Well, you go talk to like a buddy of mine who like probably works at like Google Gemini or something like that. Shout out if you know who you are. I probably can ask him about this. He'd be like, "This is ridiculous. You know, I just want to ship a product." You know, it's like, and it's like you're working on Gmail. Like, it's not saying that in a light way, but it's more in a like, oh yeah, we have some new tools to make some cool stuff. Let's make some cool stuff. NBD, we can make a lot more cool stuff than we used to because of AI. That's cool. That's that. I would say that's the majority view, and then there's the people often you know playing with crystals and you know over there, and so
in the corner sniffing glue.
But those people were rich. Those people all joined. Various AI companies like, you know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and are doing quite well for themselves.
Nice.
Provided, so then there's like yet another, there's like the people in kind of like the Elon universe. And when I describe the Elon universe, it's like Elon is actually, the controversy with Elon is actually funny because I say this as someone who runs a hardware company. He actually has to ship a product. He doesn't exist in like a fictional, like he doesn't exist in the World Wrestling Entertainment universe that is like Donald Trump. He doesn't exist in the World Wrestling Entertainment universe that is like in some sense, when the rubber hits the road, Tesla has to ship cars. And so weirdly, even though there's this entire online noise machine, various other things like that, like his success is grounded on stuff actually happening in the real world. And that is possibly one of the most interesting pieces of tension I can see, because we're in this weird post-scarcity society. We basically have figured out post-scarcity to the point of like, and people think, oh, you're gonna get Star Trek. Everyone's gonna be nice to each other. Everyone's gonna be rich. Everyone's gonna like, we're not gonna need money anymore. All sort of stuff. It's like actual post-scarcity means that you're not gonna starve to death, but the crises are gonna be all in your own mind. Right. And so it's going to be much more of a like, again, you're going to have like, what's the Idiocracy, President Camasso or something like that. Like you're going to have President Camasso in the Star Trek hyper abundant future, because in some sense, that's the only stuff that's going to matter is like the kayfabe basically. And that actually is so that's the other point that's going on too, is like, I think that there's gonna be this weird tension where like Elon is like the last guy who actually has to do anything in the real world, while the political system is changing increasingly to like, well, like now if you're a UFC commentator, you're the most important podcast to be on, right? Like it's this very interesting tension I'm seeing.
But
and meanwhile, like
with the
and meanwhile, like my friends who work in various Elon companies, it's like they're not talking about his political stuff at all. Like it's like, no, we have to make the rocket work. It's like, right. And it's not some ideological project. It's like, no, we're going to go to Mars. It's going to be sweet.
Well, Ben, what do you think about Elon Musk?
I call Elon Sir Epic Bacon. That's what I call him. How about that? I don't know. He fucking sucks. He sucks my ass. He sucks my fucking nuts.
What about the gaming shit recently? That was kind of stupid, right?
So where he was pretending allegedly that he was getting...
Yeah. That was pretty embarrassing, I think.
I'll just have my brother swap out for me when I play video games online, and then then it'll be slightly less cheating. So
well,
you'll know when that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like the little brother always wanted the video game controller, and then now finally he gets the video game controller, and he gets it for a long time. But the trade-off is now all of his victories get attributed to you. But whatever. That's completely fine. But why does he suck your ass, Ben? If you can define it.
He sucks ass, and he's a retard, and everybody becomes more retarded by talking about him. He's like this IQ sponge. He walks in a room and everybody becomes dumber and more embarrassing just by being like talking about him or thinking about him. He's a parasite.
Why is he the only guy who can actually, like, I'll say this really funny thing is he has the largest printed circuit board manufacturing facility in the United States.
What does that do?
He makes like the Starlink things. They make them in the like basically he has made the only consumer electronics product that sells profitably in the United States. He vertically integrated and built the factory here, and everyone else is kind of like saying stuff about reshoring manufacturing. So it's like the guy actually did it, and he did it with like a product that's more complex than like an iPhone.
Do you think he did it, or do you think people that work for him and see his little CEO minions do it? That's what I think.
I'll say is like my understanding of why he's effective is, in some sense, it's like we've been made uncomfortable. No. He's probably the best person at receiving capital of all time. It's almost like if you fused a like top venture capitalist, like basically he's raising from like the LPs of these funds, in some sense. And so he's the best fundraiser of all time, obviously, but in some sense that is downstream of like, he was not the best fundraiser of all time when Tesla looked like a disaster, right? Like he had to bridge that company himself, multiple times. And so but the point is, like, the way the thing that I think we've fucked up with as a society, and this is like this, I don't think the like going to like this is not a left versus right thing or anything like that, is we've basically forgotten how to ship stuff and like how to actually like make the built world do something. Because I think Noah Smith, who is our mutual friend, like,
Yes,
has this whole concept of what's called like a stasis subsidy. We've essentially decided that, hey, to like stabilize the US, you know, in the 70s, when we hit like the oil crisis, all that stuff, we decided to basically just like essentially subsidize keeping the built world the same. And that has bent and now broken over the past 20 or so years, because like we didn't build enough housing in urban areas. We're like incompetent building infrastructure. California high-speed rail is like barely going to happen. It's a disaster. And like, meanwhile, China's like, yeah, we can just build trains. We can just, you know, done. You know, they have a whole high-speed rail network in the 10 years we spent doing environmental reviews for half of the California high-speed rail route. And so we built up all this stuff because we didn't want to trigger like one gadfly, you know, that shows up to town meetings.
Or the smelt fish, if we're talking
or
about.
Well, the
like,
smelt fish is the smelt fish is made up to not trigger the one gadfly who shows up to the city meetings. And by the way, these city meetings are downstream of Protestant town meeting culture, by the way. Speaking of like aesthetic Christianity sex, right? Protestant sex. So it's all it's all funnily connected to like kind of the Western vetocracy culture is downstream of Protestantism.
Neil was talking about how the original SJWs were Christians.
Mm-hmm.
So we could see, you know, the downstream effect of that. But regarding California and housing and all of that, I am curious about what Ben thinks. Since Ben, you are barely on the screen right now, buddy. Your head is like this close to the edge. Is there any way you can move a little bit? Yes.
While he's doing that, I'll say this. Meanwhile, while all this bullshit's happening, Elon's been the only guy who's actually built anything. Is like this weird situation. So despite the fact that like. And I'm saying measure this from the results, not measure from like the like, you know, Keck Lord 69, you know, sort of, you know, personas he may put on, you know, online from occasion, but like from a results oriented perspective, it's like, yeah, the guy's built some shit. And like, has anyone else in the US? No. Like,
so is it possible to differentiate, you're saying, between the cringe and what is actually effective in the direction that we should be going into more than just with Elon?
So the advantage for Elon right now is the era of woke we went from the era of woke to the era of based, but now I think we're past where the woke right is now ascended. So we're now at the era of cringe. So it might be his time again.
Ben, do you agree on that assessment?
Yeah, I mean, it seems now that right-wing people are saying they're the ones that are the persecuted. Like now they're the ones that are like, no, actually, I'm being silenced, and it's very. So now they're the like crybaby people.
I mean, I was alive in 06. I remember this shit. This is all cyclical.
But Ben, are you also seeing similar things as as Sam is seeing them when it comes to California and housing? I know it's like a whole separate thing, but not really, because it also kind of ties into what people who are more in the tech sphere envision for society versus people who are not, who also, like, let's say, live in California. So, for example,
why would I want them to envision what's best for society when they don't have fucking lives? They're not like in the real like world. I don't want them making my decisions. They stare at screens. Get the fuck. You can't make any decisions.
Okay, interesting point.
Outside, you can't make decisions for other people. How about that? If you have blue light poisoning at the age of 23, get the fuck out of policy and stop shaping the world in these grand sweeping ways. If you don't spend, you should have to spend a certain amount of time in nature. You should have had to read the classic novels.
I like that one.
You should have to have some sort of spiritual side, something. You can't have jaundice from being logged in for so long somehow.
Okay, Sam, what is your? I really want to hear Sam's response to this.
Your skin can't look like ricotta cheese, and then you're telling me how I'm supposed to live my life. Get the fuck out of here.
Vitamin D deficiency aside, my vitamin D deficiency and sitting related chronic illnesses aside, and like that neck thing that everyone's getting, that's like the leaning over neck thing. I'll probably pop a disc for my 35th birthday. But basically, all that aside, I do think that there's a difference between the PR facade of tech and the actual thing of tech. Like, I would say that the cringe I see in the tech industry is more that the like, I still cringe at like, why is the modal date for two people who work in the tech industry like going to this one rock climbing gym or something like that? Like, it's not like, yes, they're the people who are in these like founder group houses talking about how they're really looking forward to like hooking up with the Borg Queen or whatever. But like that, like, yes, that exists, but it's almost the all these people are normal people doing normal people stuff. Their jobs are just kind of like what everyone is talking about right now. I do think though that the thing that actually is the point of truth in what you said is, and this goes back to what I was saying about Elon and all this other stuff, is most of us have been working on things that don't matter. And when I say things that don't matter, it's we've been doing stuff where it's like, I am changing the color shading of a checkbox on Google search because the designer moved on to a new job and now the new designer wants to change the color on that box. And by the way, I'm getting paid $500K a year for that. And maybe I'm going to be in 20 meetings to decide that. And maybe due to territorial stuff between multiple directors at this company, like maybe we won't make that decision for a week or two or a month or two or three. And maybe, I'll get exceeds expectations despite the fact that I didn't write a line of code in the last, 3 months. And it's like, that's the situation that we're seeing right now, where like nothing really is impacting the built world because we made that illegal. And so essentially we've been trying to figure out how to like, it's not polishing a poop, but it's like in some sense, like what the tech industry got to play with until, I would argue, Elon in some sense was stuff that existed in your mind, not stuff that existed in the world.
But as far as stuff that exists in the world that Elon would want to see, if we're talking about Neuralink, for instance, that is a very scary proposition. I have not found one negative thing that Elon Musk has said about China. He has said negative things about, the future of AI in the wrong hands. He's never insulted Xi Jinping. He has a factory over there. He doesn't want to step on those shoes. But to me, it's a very scary proposition that you have somebody like him and Larry Ellison and a lot of these other cats talking about having this hive mind that's connected to the internet where most people are going to be a part of it. Like, to me, that's, I don't know what Ben thinks. He probably agrees. To me, that's like creating this.
Larry Ellison's creating a portal to hell, and our tax dollars are funding it. It's great. It's good.
Like, that's the concern.
No, I can't wait. Hey guys, there's a new gate. You can walk right into hell. You don't even have to let the devil drag you into there. You can walk right in. Let's make it easy on everybody.
I mean, I will say that like, again, I've lived near some of these group houses, and it's like, oh, we're gonna make the dark machine god, but trust me, bro, the singularity will save us. Us specifically, because we're the progenitors of the dark machine god, and that's awesome.
And that's the group houses.
That's dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
But that's the group houses.
By the way, we're all in a polycule together.
I have not seen a lot of.
At a certain point, this is David Koresh stuff, It's like,
right?
Yeah, but they don't even have hot girls like that squirrel-looking girl with what's his name, Sam Bankman-Fried. In that polycule. I don't know what was going on there.
I'm not gonna make fun of anyone's appearance. I think that's like not professional, but there are hot girls in these things.
All right, fair enough.
I'm open.
Tell me more.
Portal.
The last
the dark
temptation.
Portal to hell. The dark portal to hell may in fact, yeah. So but I do think like I keep going back to this where like I will like me and my cool friends that are of this specific post-rationalist clique will be saved by us creating and impressing on the dark machine god what we think, and it's like this weird like post AI doomer thing being like, oh yeah, AI is going to happen anyway. So let's make sure that we build the darkest machine god possible.
So it's like they would watch Lord of the Rings and think when the wizard Saruman is turning to, they go, no, he's smart actually, because Sauron is going to win probably. So he has to help the Uruk-hai and raise all these things from hell to take over. They've never read. This is my problem. They've like never read a book. They don't know. They don't know anything about a myth or a story or a fable. Like nothing. Like they think they're gonna be saved by creating this this thing that's like ultimate evil.
No. So I'm going. So the funniest thing about this is that's like just one universe, right? Like so then the guys who have read a ton of stuff, like you can talk to like Peter Thiel's, Peter Thiel orbit and all that stuff. These guys have read a lot of stuff. I mean, honestly, it's like it's a much simpler explanation for them, which is way less bullshit. Honestly, it's like we're just right wingers.
Right.
That's not like, and I say that not negative. I'm like, okay, but there's a lot of fanciful window dressing on that. But it's like, it's like.
But is collaborating with China, is that right wing?
But he's not pro China. So this is the other interesting piece of like who is pro China and pro Russia.
Weird new right.
But there's like the pro Russia factions in this whole thing because they think that Putin is based. Right. And they can kind of like
Orthodox Christian. That's why.
Yeah, there's stuff there, and it's interesting. But then there's like, again, I'll like not pick on Thiel in this case because like I think if you have a full dose of like insight. I'm going easy on him because
go easy on Peter Thiel.
No, I'm going easy on him because like if you're inside like a Palantir or something like that, you're gonna realize like
Speaking of Saruman, by the way, Palantir.
Yeah. If you literally can see inside the Palantir, I think you're gonna be a little uneasy with both Russia and China.
Yeah, I hung out with Joe Lonsdale for a day. It was fucking weird.
Wait, with who?
One of the co-founders of Palantir, Joe Lonsdale, hung out with them.
Yeah, you hang out with everyone.
He's a cool guy.
What was he like?
I don't know. Have you ever hung out with what's it?
I know Joe. Yeah.
What's that old cartoon? Peter and the Wolf.
Yes.
It kind of felt like hanging out with the wolf. Nice. like he smiled at me, and I was looking at him. I'm like, I think he has more teeth than the average human.
Oh shit.
It was bizarre. It was he wanted me to play. I had to play pickleball against him. He asked if
he probably beat you.
Yeah, he was hyper competitive and a fucking huge loser, retard. He took that. And
so it means you lost. It means you lost. Yeah.
Well, I was wearing I had these big Doc Martin boots on. I wasn't ready to.
Oh, so you lost. Yeah.
I wasn't ready to play pickleball against the guy in the CIA.
Now, only because you mentioned Lex Friedman on your show Lemon Party already, Ben. Yeah, you already mentioned it. What was your experience with him? Because he seems to be in the center of a lot of, doing jiu-jitsu with Elon Musk and going on Joe Rogan. And, he was interviewing Zelensky recently as well. He seems to be an actor who made his way, I don't know how, in the middle of a lot of these happenings.
Yeah, in his place, he's a nice guy or whatever, but there's like little robot dogs laying around that he's like working on. None of it really makes any. I don't really get it. He goes in a closet, he comes out, he's in a suit. It's all ridiculous. Like I can't really make. And then you're having a conversation with the guy, he's nice, and then like he's always constantly interjecting, trying to persuade you that like apropos of nothing, like how great of like a man Vladimir Putin is. That's like a weird, always like aside. You're like, okay, well, I wasn't talking about that at all.
He says this off camera.
Yeah. It's all very. I don't know, man. I get spooked out pretty easily.
I'm much more in the dark machine god thing than the like dark people, the scary people who want to pretend to be God thing. Like, yeah, I'll go with the dark machine. At least I can control it through my weird friends over down the street.
I mean, now it's actually a lot more understandable after the whole Zelensky interview, because that was very obviously him trying as much as he could to make Putin look good. And afterwards,
he was talking. He failed.
Yeah. And he was talking behind Zelensky's back afterwards. He made this follow-up video. And, the whole thing strikes me as really strange, especially him talking about, growing up in Ukraine or being born in Ukraine, even though he was born in Moscow. So there's a lot of weirdness going on.
Be wary of things that pop up and are immediately popular, whether it's Lex's show or Sean Ryan or whatever. I don't.
I'm a big Dwarkesh though is good. We'll say
I agree with that, and he blew up so quick he was right below Joe Rogan in day one, 2.4 million views every video. I'm like, what the hell? Where do we? Because Joe Rogan, we knew where he's from. He got famous before he started.
I watched Fear Factor at like 1 a.m. when I was
exactly. I remember all the shows he used to do, the Man Show, all that. Lex Friedman just starts a podcast and he's getting millions of views every episode. Like, what the hell? What did he do? That's what I thought.
I
think it's guest. He got good guest bookings.
He got good guests though. That's true. That's true.
I think it's he got good guest bookings, and he's also in the Rogan orbit. So like Rogan was like, you should go. Like
kind of the algorithm.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that go on Rogan constantly though, and they get like 600 views on their podcast. So.
Yeah, that's true. That doesn't make it.
It's not like a kingmaker anymore. You gotta
So the thing that I think was really interesting with the Lex Zelensky thing was Zelensky, I think, called his bluff on it because he was trying to kind of worm his way out of doing the interview and have an excuse to not do it. And Zelensky's like, yeah, I'll fucking do it. And I'll even talk to you in Russian for part of it. And like, all this other stuff. And so what I realized was there was this attempt by, I have a theory that there's actually a maybe you can even call it cancel culture, that there is a attempted firewalling of kind of like positive pro-Ukraine narratives in a section of kind of the media most frequented by the new right. And because in some sense, the actual story is pretty favorable to Ukraine. I'm like, this is like a fascinating defense tech story. This is like, there are like, well-known conservative founder types like supporting them in this fight, like, Palmer Lucky showing up there and stuff like that. Like there's a very interesting non-ideological story about how they're able to pull this off, the drone war, various other things like that, what they've done in the Black Sea with like basically kayaks with Starlink on them and, like blowing up boats and stuff like that. This is a non-trivial, very interesting, very positive story of like an former imperial subject resisting the master. But the way that has been dealt with has been, hey, let's kick up everything from like Hunter Biden XYZ to, basically like 10-year-old corruption stuff that was kind of even propagated by like effectively Russian oligarchs that were in Ukraine. Like that has been kind of the noise narrative, and suppressing kind of the ability of certain people like Zelensky, who is very well spoken, from going direct. I think has been part of kind of maintaining that. And it's very interesting to see that the chink in the armor was actually him going on Lex.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are a lot of right-wing podcasters, some of you might know who I'm talking about, who have been extremely pro-Russia in a lot of things that they were saying. And I think that the way that it's done is they make use of the fact that the Biden administration was so pro-Ukraine and, so many people don't like the things that Biden's administration was doing. So in the minds of the people, they injected this idea that if we aid Ukraine in any way, we're taking away from America first. We're taking away from all the poor people who are
pro-Biden. You're being pro-Biden.
Yeah, exactly. Because like
Biden
wasn't
Dark Brandon.
Yes, exactly. Like America was not minding a lot of the problems that maybe right now with the Trump administration we're seeing, regardless of whether you like it or not, we are seeing a lot of these problems being addressed, while before they weren't. So the idea was like, oh, they're taking all this money, giving it to Ukraine and not leaving any behind for the people, even though honestly both could be done at the same time. And I think now both will be done at the same time. I'm not really seeing Trump going in the same direction as a lot of these podcasters want him to be going into. So that is a silver lining, but it still leaves an important question, which is more of a philosophical one, where you get Ukraine that's fighting for their sovereignty, and it's a horrible thing. I never want anybody to be in that kind of situation, but they're living for something. And the question, going back to what, Sam, you were talking about with this age of abundance, what are people going to be living for if they're not having to contend with some kind of a conflict against some outside force? What is going to get people to get up in the morning? What is going to get people to even, something like even like getting married and having kids? Like, Ben, you were extremely lucky. You found somebody who loves you, and now, God bless you, have a daughter and all that, and it's great. Not a lot of people are going to be in your position. I don't think they are, because for a lot of people, like both men and women, they think, well, why? Why is it worth it for me to do this? Why is it worth it to go on?
Fertility rates are unfortunately plummeting, and I know a lot of people that they want kids, can't do it.
So is this something that tech could possibly get us out of, or are we going to have to go deeper into the hole, you guys think, before we're able to crawl out of it because of how insufferable it is to be in that hole?
I think that the danger is actually so I think there's like the two Elon theory is actually kind of what I would describe as like he's both like the one guy who can do things in the built world, and obviously he's like very much like pro having kids and all this other stuff. But then additionally, like you think the other thing is he's getting subsumed by the dumbest online beefs on the planet. And in some sense, what post-scarcity, the problem here is like we're now in post-scarcity where like everyone has effectively the same gadget. Like we're now at the point of like there's not like a 10 times better phone Elon can buy, right? Like there's not anything like that. We're all on the same internet. We're all kind of have the same weird posting motivations and personal sicknesses there. And we're post-scarcity. Like you could be making no money. You can be a homeless guy in a cardboard box over there on Haight Street, or you be Elon. You're on the same website. You're on the same internet. And you can have the same beefs online. And so what I think is fascinating about this is we need to build up kind of like a mimetic immune system, or we're going to run into these problems of the online beefs are going to dictate our physical political realities. And they already have, but that's, I think, the bigger problem. And like, what's the Ukraine war about? Originally, it's like Putin has convinced himself he wants to reboot the Russian Empire. Why has he convinced himself of this? If you listen to his speeches, it's like the dude is online as fuck. And so I think that's the like weird thing about this is I don't think we're gonna
I would disagree with you. One thing, he's actually not online as fuck while being online as fuck at the same time. Why? Yes. Because he doesn't use the internet.
Yeah, but
he's afraid of using the internet.
But his troll farms are already like seeding the alt-right and all that other stuff. So, like,
yes.
So like,
and the left too, and the left.
Too. No, he's got the steady drip of like everything from Jill Stein's whatever to Groyper University, and like it, and Prigozhin is off with his like punished snake metal arm updating the websites today. That's a weird reference to him.
No, by the way, listen, I had to spend several days easing myself out of MGS5. It's too good. It's so good it should be illegal. Really, like. By the way, who did you go for? Did you go with Quiet, D-Dog, D-Horse?
I haven't played this game. I just seen the Prigozhin.
Okay, all right. That's a Metal Gear Solid 5, Phantom Pain. It is. Ben, don't play this game. It's too good. It's too good. Don't play it.
I'll stay away.
I like Skyrim shit like that, or like Witcher.
Yeah.
That's the only stuff I play.
Mass Effect got remastered. And I've been meaning to replay finish replaying it. My friend's been doing that, and that's a good game. We need more sci-fi universes of that nature.
No, we don't. No, we don't. That's the problem. If everybody's going to be off playing their game, who's going to mind the store of society? I
need to know who the next Glup Shitto is going to be. I'm sorry.
This I think is a concern here, but at the same time, look, it's really fucked up because there are places like I have a good friend of mine, Glasscake. He talks about how in England things are really, really bad. Like a lot of hardworking people there, it sucks because they're getting their ass kicked by their own government who hates them. and they're not able to find good jobs, and the jobs that they do find, there's like back-breaking labor. And these are like smart people, creative people, thoughtful people that I'm getting the shitty end of the stick because that's how their government is. Do you think, like a little bit back to the post-scarcity idea, that there may be certain places that do have that? Do you think it's going to be everywhere? So this is a temporary issue for the people who are in England? Or like, what do you think is coming down the road here?
So England has a problem with NIMBYs. Like they're like the index case of Anglosphere NIMBYism being England. And so they have to basically do the purge. When I say the purge needs to be in terms of building dense housing, about allowing factories in urban areas, about like that's the sort, like if the purge happened in the United States, I just go build a high rise in San Francisco because it'd make me a bunch of money versus, going a killing spree or whatever. And so that's what England needs basically at this point. And it's this weird situation of they've essentially made too many rules that just prevent them from doing anything. And then those rules are, everything from like, oh, you can't go and investigate the taxi drivers that are like going and, abducting teenage girls to like, you can't do anything. It's like the situation. And because we made it so you can't do anything, we've actually got to post-scarcity faster. Like we said, we've already hit the level of wealth where like you're kind of tapped out. And so the problem is we need to get richer than that fundamentally. And so as a society, and so the US is going to bust through this, it seems like very clearly. Like we're probably going to be like, fuck, why can't you just hold more uranium close together and make energy? Like we're those unlocks are happening right now in the
There's
US.
a popular meme on the internet. You can just do things.
You can just do things.
You can just do things.
And so we need to just do things. The problem is, in the absence of being able to just do things, the posters wasting disease is also incredibly powerful. We've essentially engineered, in the absence of being able to do things in the physical world, we've engineered the most dangerous device known to man. And the question is, will Elon make us an interstellar civilization, or he will, become low tax version 2? And there's an actual danger. That's a metaphor for all of society in some sense. It's like, are we going to actually become an interstellar spacefaring civilization, or are we all going to turn into, the guy who ran something awful and, just being subsumed by essentially running an insane asylum of everyone online? And so I don't know. I think there's a danger. Is this the Schelling point for the great filter? I don't know. I mean, it very well might be.
Well, here's where religion, I think, plays a role. Because I know that, Sam, you were saying that you're atheist. Neil, you
I'm
are
not.
agnostic.
I would say that's not correct. But
okay, how would you phrase it better?
I went to Catholic high school.
Oh, nice. I went to Catholic school as well back in the day. Not high school, but like middle school, and
I would describe it as much more of a like. I actually think being a militant anything is probably dangerous. And when I say that, I say like I would say I'm a militant atheist against the like weird AGI group house think that is like oh, we're gonna build this dark machine god and all sort of stuff. But maybe it's like when I say that, it's like it's less of a, maybe it's apostate, not atheist.
You saw the comment there. Christian atheism is the way.
Oh, Zizek is a Christian atheist, though. He does call himself that.
Yeah, but
I'm not an atheist. I'm not an atheist.
Yeah, so you're more agnostic, but you're also paganish, because right now you're reading a lot of these old philosophers.
I believe in the muse.
The muse being like the spirit of inspiration. And Ben,
I'm not joking either. I'm serious.
Yeah. And where do you stand, Ben, when it comes to your current faith or belief system?
I would say just Christian.
How do you define Christian? Again, like not just as far as Jesus goes, but in general, like what do you believe is out there, and what do you justify your beliefs with?
So yeah, I know there is a God, and I believe that Christ was his son, and it's I don't trust in any sort of institution that there is. That it seems to me all corrupt, because it was created by man. So anything that is not of like like of God and like consciousness is inherently flawed. And that's kind of where I'm standing at the current moment. I do know that, back to your question, by the way, when I was reading the Gospels, it's bizarre because Christ seems to be this fig. Because you asked me what was my takeaway from the Gospels so far, and the thing that I took from the Gospels is that Christ sort of contradicts himself, right? He seems to have like all this like empathy for people, but at some point he comes across this fig tree and he curses it because it didn't bear fruit, and he said it'll never bear fruit. Like, he's really mad. Like, he's clearly like, he was like, I
He's
guess
like a cynic.
huh?
He's a cynic.
He was a cynical man. Well,
Yeah.
so he went to he didn't go to church, right? But he went to the synagogues, and it says he studied at the synagogues because he was Jewish, and he was thrown out of the synagogues. And he says something along the lines of like, "No prophet will be welcome in his own country." Like, no true prophet will be welcome in his own country, or something like that. So it seems everybody like hated him. He seemed to have a ton of empathy for people, but at the same time, he seemed to be incredibly angry and dismissive and sort of flippant at the same time. Now, you say Shakespeare may have written the King James version of the Bible. What's interesting is you have characters like Hamlet that are constantly contradicting themselves and contain multitudes as well. So I've just been kind of seeing the similarities there, and I'm reading the Bible for the first time in my life. I feel very drawn to it. I made my way through like back to Joyce, and through Joyce, I worked my way back to Melville. And then I'm like, well, who inspired all these guys is Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. And then who supposedly inspired Shakespeare was the King James version of the Bible. So I've been working my way back in terms of Western literature, getting all the way back here. And I'm reading texts that inspired every single writer that I adore. And weirdly, when I read the Gospels now, I'll have like these weird moments of epiphany throughout the day where I kind of see my whole life present itself to me in this very strange way, and I feel much less hateful than I did the previous year, that's a big goal of mine, is to get back to my to sort of a blissful state of wonder, which is more of my default state, not becoming. Because I'll see something online, I'll start flipping out about it. I'll go insane. I mean, I've had weird outbursts on this stream. Even I apologize, Sam, if I offended you.
No, you're good. By the way, Shakespeare was really big into like the Roman poets and playwrights, like Ovid and Virgil and Livy. That's one of the things that I've been into. Like, the reason why I even call myself a Gnostic is because I sort of integrate biblical theology with some of the Greco-Roman epics like Homer, Hesiod, Pindar, Ovid, Virgil, in a sense where I don't really care about faith and belief. More I believe about like comparative mythology and gnosis knowledge. So that's what I sort of base my own sort of spirituality on. If you want to, if that makes sense. That's where the word Gnostic comes from.
Do not lean upon your own understanding, Neil. This is what the good word.
I'm also a Jungian in a lot of ways too.
There you go.
So the question I always have is like, how much of like the ancient Roman culture actually got preserved in some sense? Because a lot, but in a weird sense though, it's like there's like a bunch of Germanic religious stuff that has been weirdly wiped. So it's like we in some sense interpret that as a different thing. Like, we don't see that as necessarily like of a Germanic tradition or anything like that. Likewise,
even something simple as the handshake, you shake someone's hand, that's a Mithraic bond. That's a bond. Well, yeah, bond. That's the word. That's what you say. That was the symbol of the shaking of the hand, was like, you've just made a deal and Mithra oversaw it. So now you can't break that deal. That's what the hand, something so simple that you never would think about, was actually we got from Roman paganism. There's a whole bunch of stuff like that I can point to.
But when it comes to somebody like Gemistus Plethon, who I frequently bring up on the show, he was somebody who was living during the Byzantine era in Constantinople, and he was a pagan. He considered Zeus to be the godhead out of which emanated all of these other gods. What is it, would you say, that would lead you closer to a view like that versus something that is, I guess you could say that is faith-based too, but it seems to be less faith-based than something like Christianity or Judaism or Islam, for instance, because it does have a little bit more to do with philosophy. The idea there's like this one thing, and out of which comes all of these different, all of these different necessities.
I thought that was purely Platonist, trying to bring back the strict Platonism of the one, which is there eternal one that emanates all being,
the eternal logos.
Yeah.
But is there something that is missing, to Ben's point of men trying to understand reality and that being hubris in a way?
Was that from me or Ben?
That's from Ben to you.
Yeah, I mean, Young, you love Young. He says Christ is the perfect symbol for understanding the self, right? Yeah. So,
my understanding is that I actually
metaphysical, sort of journey that you're going on, like acquiring these texts and stuff. At some point, it might just become nonsense in your head. You might just be hoarding information that eventually you'll just have to, take a torch to, so you can make room for.
Because when I read the Gospels, I'm seeing like a splinter of these other figures. For example, Apollo, I am the light of the world, right? That's very Apollonian. Apollo was the light god, right? And then I am the true vine. My father is the husbandman. The true vine literally is Dionysus. He's the vine god.
Mm-hmm.
I can go on and on. Asclepius healing people, making people be able to see again. That's very Asclepian medical. I can go on and on about the passages of the Bible that don't not only are they going through the Old Testament to fulfill prophecy from the Old Testament prophets like Isaiah and Ezekiel, but it's also sort of tying itself into Greco-Roman culture as well. That's where the whole there's parts of the Bible where it literally mimes Homer. There's parts where, like when Jesus is his feet are being wiped by Mary Magdalene. There's a scene in Homer where Odysseus's feet are being wiped by his whatever her name is. I forgot the girl's name, but anyway, she recognizes the face of the master, and then that's kind of what the scene in the Bible is doing. So the authors of the Gospels were putting together literally a masterpiece of a text that was like fulfilling not just Jewish stuff, but was fulfilling a lot of the Greco-Roman stuff.
A lot of them were Greek. Some of them were Greek. So
it's all Greek. Yeah.
So the other thing,
Alexandria, the Library of Alexandria. It's where you cannot get a text like the Bible without the Alexandrian Library.
Yeah. The craziest thing, and I see this again. This is like the group houses across the street. It's like it feels like this like situation that's happening right now is the realization with AI that, hey, if I just assemble like every written piece of text that exists and stuff it into a relatively simple system just scaled up to a very large degree, I can get intelligence out of it. It almost feels like, oh, the secret of the universe is revealing itself to some of these folks. And now what's happening is all these people have different interpretations. It almost feels like we've got a bunch of different Canaanite tribes with their own like specific sponsor god that they're incubating. And this feels like it's happening right now, and it's strange. And then meanwhile, there's like and so that's happening for sure. Then meanwhile, there is a like groundswell of like what I would say is kind of like Christian revivalism, both like Catholicism and some evangelicalism as well, depending on and that's more particular to the individuals kind of advocating for this. But a bunch of these things are just happening all at the same time, whether it's like this sort of like, yes, we're basically building our own machine
we're in that
god,
old archaic polytheistic stage, like the Iron Age or the Bronze Age, and
exactly
we're waiting that Plato to come along and unify everything.
Yes, exactly. It feels like we're in the era of Bronze Age cults.
Yeah,
Bronze Age pervert. There we go.
True. That's where tech is right now in the Bronze Age. We haven't even gotten to Plato and Aristotle and Jesus and whoever else has to come in the tech world.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, like if I was making like a video game today, I'm not sure if you guys played like Elder Scrolls Morrowind or
Morrowind, yeah.
I could build like the best like different like religious texts off of this. Like it would be so much better than any of the like I think Mass Effect had like a whole, like obviously it's about like AI.
The lore goes deep.
Galaxy. Yeah, but the lore goes deep. But like even now, I'm like, it is a lot more relevant, both in a recency thing, but also in a like, oh, there's like essentially Neo Bronze Age cults of the machine god booting up across the street from me. and it's and meanwhile, those are in competition with the religions of the previous century, and like those religions are like resurgent as well.
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's interesting, and like I would say like is it a situation where
I would even say the Yahweh of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, is sort of a amalgamation and unification of the different Canaanite cults of El and Yahweh and Baal and Asherah, and they're putting it all together into this mosaic code.
But here's the problem, fellas. So right now what's happening is that you're providing a lot of evidence for, well, this is what Christianity or Abrahamism really is. This is how you're disassembling Jesus. And my question is that necessarily something that helps most people? Because like Ben, in your example, if you do believe that Jesus is the Son of God, what usefulness would it be for somebody to come along and say, well, actually, Jesus is like this, yada yada, Mithra, or whatever?
That, I would admit what I'm doing is not what everyone should be doing. What most people should be doing is just keep it simple. Go to a church, follow a pastor. That if you really want to be like, I remember those days being very happy going to church and listening to what I'm doing now would drive most people crazy. Like
but it's not just that. It's also, again, going to what Ben, you were talking about, the question of hubris. If there are people who think that they're smart enough to figure out reality, that's like the One Ring, going back to Lord of the Rings for a second. And that is something that has a lot of potential for abuse. Like, I'm curious if you can elucidate a little bit on your thoughts there.
I mean, what's the specific question, Lev?
Well, on one hand, we have people who want to be more philosophically minded, try to figure out what reality is, even if they have good intentions. What you were talking about, faith,
you should go down all those roads, and you should go down them as far as you want, and at some point, just realize that you don't know anything, at all, and that one question leads to 10 questions. And those 10 questions lead to 100 more. Yeah. And it can just keep going on forever and ever. So you can listen to that thing deep down inside you that is truth incarnate, right?
That's why whenever I encounter somebody who's a know-it-all, I think they know everything about everything, I just know they're stupid as hell. Because nobody can know it. There's just in like mythology alone or philosophy alone, take one thing at a time. Just studying Platonism by itself to take decades to even get like to a level of being like an authority on that stuff. Take decades to study. Like all these things go into their own universes, and to know all this stuff is just impossible.
Well, yeah, and by the way, I think this doesn't, what I'm saying does not apply to Jewish people, because I think it only really applies to Christians, right? Because the Jewish faith is based on that covenant. So it's about trust. And then Christianity is about faith.
Faith, yeah.
So with Jews, gnosis, or, knowledge or whatever, the knowledge of that covenant is very, very important. But
that's why you had pre-Christian Gnostics that were Alexandrian Greek-speaking Jews.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Huh. Oh. But then already you have this differentiation of Christians, Jews, Muslims, whatever, faiths that have existed for quite a long while now. But now, Neil, you're talking about bringing things back to the roots, where people will start embracing more of these paganistic beliefs, maybe in kind of the same way, where not everybody has to be like a philosopher, but you were saying that it will be better for Europeans to go back to like the OG European face of like Wotan and yada yada yada. Could you elaborate a little bit on that vision that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think everyone should have. I think people should be able to embrace their ancestry and their local cults or whatever it is that they're a part of, and shouldn't have to be looked at as heretical for that.
Ben, do you agree?
About the local looking into local cults.
Yeah.
Man, local
When I say cult, I mean the old way. That's like religion. It's basically religion. I don't mean cult like David Koresh. I shouldn't have used that word. That's a very academic word. No, because the word they used to call it cult. We call it religion now, but in the ancient world they called it cult, like the cult of Dionysus, the cult.
I know what you mean.
Cult of yeah, that's what I meant.
What's unfortunate about life is that the past sort of paints the present, right? And then that determines the future. And it's just, it's just a damn shame that you can't just start fresh one day. You can't become, I know, born again, some sort of, supposedly that's a thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's just not true. It's not true. You can't run.
Well, I think I want to say this though, because at some point there was like a 200-year period where Christians and pagans, I hate that word because they didn't all call themselves pagans. There wasn't like we're one religion called pagans. There was the Alexandrians that worship Serapis. There was Athena in Athens. There was Mithras, the cult of Mithras. There was
your town's temple was different, basically.
There are all these local.
It's like time zones before time zones.
Then you had the Orthics, who were sort of international. Christians are sort of international. There was more, and Mithraism was international as well. So you did have also on top of that these sort of international cults that were operating, and they were all fine coexisting from about 100 AD to about 325. Everything was good, and everyone thinks that the Christians were being like slaughtered to lions. That's not really true. Only under certain emperors that happened. Then, when Christians got in power, they're the ones that actually outlawed pagans. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say why did that have to happen? I don't think it never ever had to happen. I'm trying to
Are you talking about
anti-Theodosian?
Theodosia, yeah.
Are you talking about when they killed all the Gnostics, when they genocided all the early sects of Christianity and stuff?
Yeah, I'm talking. Yeah, the Edict of
300 AD.
Edict of Thessalonica, 380. I think it was.
It's terrible. I wonder what books we lost.
Right. That's what I'm trying. I'm trying to fix that. I'm trying to like bring back what was going on before that edict happened.
Yeah, you're carrying the torch of Carl Jung. He.
Exactly.
Yeah, he translated the Coptic text, right? He learned Coptic, and
he was very passionate about exactly what I'm doing.
And now Neil is learning Hebrew and ancient Greek and all of this. It's amazing what you've been able to accomplish, just in a couple of years. Like you are just going for it, and it's an amazing thing to see. But to
firewalking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Firewalk.
Maybe the spirit of David Lynch will now be infused.
It's kind of bold of you, Neil, because if you read about Jung at all, he completely lost his mind and built a house in the woods that represented his consciousness.
I'm very aware that could happen to me very soon.
He was talking to ghosts. He was just like a complete and total freak.
The Red Book. You're right. He was talking to himself. He was talking to the devil. Talking to Jesus. Talking to Eros.
I read 200 pages of the Red Book and I had to put it away because I felt like I was teetering on the edge of reality some nights.
Did you get to the end where he talks about Abraxas, the symbol of my channel?
No, I think
that's his conclusion, is that Abraxas is going to come, Jesus is going to lose, and the devil's going to lose. And Abraxas is going to take care of it all.
And what does Abraxas symbolize?
Symbolizes the reality itself. So Abraxas he's got the head of a hawk, of a bird, or of a rooster, or sometimes a hawk. He's got the man arms, and he's got a shield and a whip, and he's got the serpent legs. So it's like the three elements: air, land, water. And then his name in Greek, Abrasax, has a gematria, which is when you add the numbers to letters and you do the math. It's 365, the days of the year. So, and then he's got it's like a time god. He's like an all supreme reality deity that he's according to Jung and according to some of the early Gnostics like Basilides, he was above not only Jesus but the Father God too. who they call they had a name for.
We call this feeling the AGI, by the way.
So Young was saying that there's a god. Young was saying that there's a god above God who's called Abraxas, and that Jesus doesn't even know yet that this God's even higher than him.
And when it comes to Brahman, that's a question from Glass Cake over there, James. What do you think of Brahman, the Hindu idea of the the top god, top dog there? Any thoughts on Brahman?
Me?
No? Yeah.
Oh, Brahman. That's like the all supreme god from the Hindus.
Yeah, exactly.
What about it? What are you asking?
Well, any thoughts? So what is your opinion of him? He asks.
I would say people had this idea that monotheism comes like Jewish people invented monotheism, and before that everyone was polytheistic. But I would argue that the Rig Veda, the Rig Veda's the Brahman that creates everything is sort of a monotheistic one that presupposes everything. Sort of similar to how Yahweh or even Plato's God is depicted. And that Rig Veda goes back to the Bronze Age. They were doing monotheistic shit, and it's ironic because the Hindus are sort of charged as being the most polytheistic of all. They have 1 million gods, people will say, and it's true. They have 1 million devas, which are lesser deities than the Brahman, the all supreme Brahman.
They're all aspects, just
he's
like in
Trinitarian
Platonic thought. Yeah,
he's a Trinitarian god. He's a
Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Yeah, exactly. Shiva's the destruction god.
And what's very interesting with this is it's almost like if Theodosius didn't succeed, and you integrated all of the regional cults, into a overarching.
That's what Sol Invictus kind of was already. Yeah. The Sol Invictus was the latest stage of Roman religion, and if you look at what Sol Invictus represented, it was this all-pervasive godhead that could morph itself into other gods and present itself in different forms. It could be Dionysus, it could be Attis, it could be Aphrodite, but then all of it comes back to the one, which is the sun. The Helios is what Julian the Apostate called it, or Sol Invictus is what Aurelian called it. And this was this all pervasive. So what you're explaining is like if Theodosius never prevailed, that was already in the works with the Sol Invictus theology.
Very interesting. Now, Sam, when it comes to not specifically those cults that you were talking about, the Doomer AI people, although about them I am kind of interested too, do they have any of this sense like Neil does and like Ben does of mythology and, all of these things that came before, or are they kind of winging it? Like how well-versed would you say a lot of these tech people are in this stuff?
I'm thankfully someone who's not read the sacred texts of lesswrong.com or whatever. But it was actually funny. Is like this stuff started really popping off like 2017, 2018. And I had not seen all like the rationalists, like OG discourse. My sense is I view this as effectively a like Christian story, just not necessarily because I view online atheism as a Christian story, effectively, if it makes any sense. And in some sense, like Less Wrong and the rationalist groups and all this other stuff is an offshoot of that. If I think I could draw the graph, you could draw the through lines through that sort of thing. I don't know. Like the question I've sort of have is like, I think people believe that there is this like fundamental part of the universe that lets intelligence come into existence. Like it's almost like a physical law, and our ability to discover that, like if we discover that, we essentially find the Godhead. Like that's that would be the like meta story across all of these various groups effectively.
But what's weird to me is that it almost seems like they're trying to discover it by going into a lab and taking it like out of some sample, or to use more of the electronic idea, having like a large hadron collider and then being able to isolate something, as opposed to changing themselves from within. That seems to be the differentiator here between what Neil and Ben are talking about and this group of people.
Yeah, it's also like it's much more. I would describe it kind of like opening the Ark of the Covenant in Raiders of the Lost Ark. than like going in like enmeshing yourself in foundational texts and starting from first principles, because it's actually this very interesting thing of like there's a belief that with data and scale versus intentional crafting, you can make it exist. And then once you make it exist, you can ask it a question of why it exists.
So, Ben, I think this is not something you'd be a big fan of when it comes to the future, because they are foregoing the ability to
be like. It was one thing with like scientists did alchemy back in the day, and then they drink the potion and they die, thinking that they would live forever. But now they're doing alchemy, and if they fuck up, like everybody dies. Like I don't want to be your guinea pig. Like lock it that in a controlled room, toy around all you want, but like don't unleash it on the masses and stuff.
So this is what's funny is I think that's a sign they've actually been literally like from a literary perspective they've been successful, because in some sense this like dark machine god narrative is, I mean, if you actually ask me for my views on this, like I think that's overhyped. I think this is going to be a cool tool that's going to work, and I think yes, we're going to find more about like why intelligence comes into existence in the first place from it, but I'm not necessarily thinking like this goes back to actually what I said earlier about like Elon weirdly enough being the only guy who can seem to do things in the built world. We've essentially forgotten that like, you know, to make Skynet able to launch nuclear missiles, it needs to have like access to nuclear missiles. Like it has to like be able to have industrial capacity to do bad things. And those things are not necessarily free. Like it's not like because the AGI is incredibly smart, it can suddenly self-assemble a Death Star or whatever. It's like that is not going to happen because again, building things is hard and building things takes time, even if you're infinitely smart. Don't ask me how I know that as a hardware founder, but and because of that aspect, and like these guys are existing in like a software only world where like, yeah, the AI is going to make it infinite, basically free to change the color of a text of the background of a text box on Google search. Like, yeah, that sort of stuff becomes infinitely easy, but but being able to like set up steel manufacturing on Mars, you know, you ask yourself that rhetorical question. And like, it's not going to be free. And so for that same reason, I think, yes, AI could be immensely harmful and dangerous, but it's going to be immensely harmful and dangerous in the like spammers are going to get really good and your mom's going to get scammed when like you pretend to call her or when you call her up and credibly say that you're in jail and need bail money or something like that. Like it's like the stuff is going to look like that. The stuff's going to look like, there's going to be a lot of low quality content, or not low quality content, but like there's going to be a lot of like noise versus signal.
Low effort.
It's going to be like everyone's going to be able to slop, but also everyone, on the flip side, everyone is going to have the power of like a
studio.
Yeah.
By the way, have you seen this one character? There's one YouTuber, Quebble Cobb. This guy used to be super famous doing like stupid gaming videos. It sucked. But now he's doing AI reacting to AI. He's literally just releasing daily videos of slop of an AI character reacting to AI videos. And he's getting 30,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 sometimes views every day.
Wow.
It's horrible too. I watched it. Horrible. Why are people even watching this?
Yeah.
I don't even know where he's getting his views from.
Ben, you're going to have to protect your family from a lot of this stuff, because it's out there, and whether it's school or, just like the environment, you are somebody who's smart enough to have realized how this stuff is going to affect people's brains. Like, eventually, do you want to like go move into the mountains or something? Or
all this stuff is evil, right? And there's no escaping it. And it's evil because the first thing it's really attacking is art. And what is older than language is image and dreams and all that stuff. And that's the stuff that it's replacing first. And that just means AI is, and all this, whatever this shit is, it's all a big scissor, and it's cutting the umbilical cord that's tethered between us and God. And it's just fucking disgusting. And I hope Silicon Valley burns to the ground. And I hope Elon Musk gets shot in the back of the head.
Whoa. In Minecraft. This is YouTube. This is
you wanna
YouTube, Ben.
see the slop real
Fires the
quick? I
bullet
found it.
between his son's legs.
YouTube.
You want to see the
YouTube.
slop? It's pretty. It's you're gonna laugh your ass off.
I hope
They're
Brian
shorts. They're all
Johnson's
shorts.
I hope Brian Johnson's healing tinctures work and extend his life for a long time. Now so the I think that there's an interesting thing that's going to happen. I think this is not obvious because this is a second order effect. Once you have very powerful AI, the internet's going to turn into this slop fest, obviously. But what if it's just literally noise? Like I'm just going to like pull my phone out and it's like you just get like a fucking, it just looks like noise. But as soon as you've got this like hyper powerful agent that you can talk to, like I've got Data from Star Trek just like chilling with me, and he can go and just like look through the slop fest in real time and, you know, share the lower bandwidth, high quality information that I expect from maybe like the early internet before all this stuff happens. But meanwhile, there's way more content there. Like you can know anything is there if you look through the slop fest. But basically getting AI to be your ambassador to slop world is probably what's going to be in our near future. And maybe that changes how we interact with computers and how like I would want a kid to interact with computers, where I'm like, you're not getting an iPad because that's going to turn your brain into mush. You're going to get this this device that only has like an app that looks like ChatGPT and you can only talk to it, but like it will get you the things you want to see. And it's looking out, and it is designed to look out for you in this wide world of, you know, hyper predatory, hyper optimized content. Because the other issue is the content now has gotten to the point of being so optimized that like we can like I like the amount of like I remember seeing an article, a post on Instagram today or yesterday being like, I know this week has been super stressful for a lot of people. And it was not about Trump. It was about TikTok being down. and I'm like, okay, so there's psychological danger to the weak-minded
Is it back up
Instagram
now?
scrollers of TikTok. It's back up now. But if you uninstalled it, you can't re-download it because the App Store. But
Good.
basically like the psychological vulnerability of people to having their binky being taken away. And but by the way, this is a like hyper predatory binky. This thing's got like, you know, fangs. If you try to pull it out, it like lodges in.
It's got heroin needles on it. Yeah,
it's got heroin. It's got like but we've essentially built the Death Star of attention, if that makes any sense. And weirdly enough, we need to basically arm ourselves with our own dark machine god to beat it. And by the way, that Death Star of attention is not necessarily of the same intellectual history as the dark machine god. So like, you know, maybe I need to pray to Baal to rescue me from TikTok.
Yeah. By the way, I'm proud to say that I've never logged into TikTok. I've never watched TikTok. I've only seen what's shared to other apps.
You could have been big on TikTok, right? Like as far as Gnostic Informant.
I had an editor that I was paying to do like shorts on YouTube. And they opened up a TikTok channel for my channel, and I guess it started off doing all right, but I was like, I don't want nothing to do with that shit.
Is it getting banned, or is America gonna buy it? I don't know. Like Sam, what do you think?
There's like a 90-day clock. Trump like triggered one part of the thing where there's a probationary period he could trigger by executive order in the statute. It appears they're going to try to get them to sell it. My understanding of what's going on here is obviously this is the attention Death Star, like, period. I'm not even sure if China knew that they had created something this amazing, but it's really freaking good.
Watching adults like do like these weird faces where they like cross their eyes and get all like weird and do voiceovers of like.
There's a specific inflection TikTok voice of like, you know,
nauseous though.
And then you also see people being like,
maybe that's a good thing for me though. That makes me sick. Maybe
you see the chroma keyed person being like 12 things you should learn about why Jill Stein is the greatest presidential candidate of all time.
Yeah, weird shit like that.
By the way, this is weirdly in your feed because they want you to see that. Yeah. And so,
right.
You know who's good at this stuff, by the way? You know who's good at this stuff, Neil? Inspiring philosophy.
And then
by the way, can I show you that AI thing? Can I show you the AI slapper?
Oh, please, absolutely.
You got it. So this student's got 15 million subscribers, and this is what he's doing now. This is what he's up to these days.
Wow, that bag swings. Oh my, look at glass cracks. This is insane. Shards fly outward. No. Whoa, they spread everywhere. I'm amazed. Everything settles. That bag stands tall. Wow!
Watch one
wow! It's dangling there. Oh God, those sparks look crazy. I can't. They're causing meltdown. No, wait, crazy. Smoke everywhere. Wait, no, wait. That glowing puddle looks
That's what he's up to. That was an AI version of himself reacting to an AI video that he made.
Ben, any YouTube safe thoughts?
I actually, I see a lot worse stuff every day. I didn't think it was that bad.
I watched
Maybe
Mr. Beast.
raising the bar a little bit.
So I watched Mr. Beast for like the first time when he showed up on X, and he was like, "Oh, I'm actually going to stream on X to appeal to the resident demigod Elon." And so he does this, and I watched like a complete Mr. Beast episode, and I'm like, "Is this MythBusters for people with even lower IQ?" Or like, is MythBusters? You could tell there was tension between the creators of the show and the producers, where they're like they wanted to talk about cool, like they were like, we tried some cool thing XYZ. I bet they were going to do the Shroud of Turin. They probably got told the producers not to do it.
Right.
And so they all wanted. They were doing a bunch of this stuff, and it was always this tendency of the producers to be like, make the car explode or make like whatever. Mr. Beast, I was like, this is literally designed for someone who cannot sit still for more than 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And I watched it. And I'm just like,
most of the internet's designed.
And then he shows up, especially when he has like guests on the show, and he shows up and he's like in a suit, and he's like, and I'm like, you're like a trickster god. Like this is your like entire affect. You're this like dark trickster god of attention. That's true. And I'm frightened at this point of like, where's the high quality content going to be if like, okay.
That's crazy because Mercury is depicted holding a money sack in some of the old Greek.
He's like
a money. He's like a money guy. That's Mr. Beast.
I would say if you played Elder Scrolls, it's like he's Sheogorath too. He's like Like that's probably the Sheogorath. Yeah. That is Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is that.
It's a trickster, trickster guy.
So as far as the future of people who are going to be into more stuff like that, obviously we have Gen Z and now Gen Alpha and Gen Beta. Oh, God help us, going into this stage.
Andrew Tate is disappointed that it's Gen Beta. I don't know.
What are you going to do? But when it comes to what the future is like in the United States, let's say, with the ideas that Elon Musk has with the H-1B visas, this is something we were talking in the previous podcast, but since you are within the world of tech, Sam, I am very interested in what you think is the situation here, because for me personally, I don't really care what a person looks like, but I do care about what's in their mind. I care about the fact that we have enough people in the United States that are able to be introspective and look at things broadly and be able to predict certain things that would happen in the future, in order for this to keep going and to be better. What I'm afraid of is that when people are just picked for, doing coding in an okay way, and that's it, if that's the only qualifier for what it means to be, a person of merit, then I don't think that's enough in order to determine if you are somebody who is able to participate in the kind of society that we want to build. So that's a potential bad scenario that I see down the line if there are going to be possibly, more legal migration of people based just on that merit-based criteria. But I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that bigger question here?
I mean, I think there's a scarcity versus abundance thing. And like, I think what's going on with the Trump administration now is like the Stephen Millers of the world who are like anti-immigration, period. Like I think Trump even made fun of him for how anti-immigration he is, like joking around, be like, you wouldn't even let me in if, like sort of like Trump has joked around about this because at a certain level, but Miller, I mean, it's recalibrating the United States to it being a place of scarcity versus a place of abundance. But I think it's just fundamentally unfair and betrays the nature of the country. Now, should we be smarter about immigration? Yes. I think the easiest H-1B thing to reform is like, why does like Infosys or these other like consulting firms pretty much just hire H-1Bs from one specific country? They submit like 5 to 10 applications for that one person, which games the lottery, which should be, I think it's technically should be illegal, but for some reason that's a loophole. They should just fix that. Like there's no reason to not fix that. That will mean that, I mean, if you look at country caps and the reasons we have country caps is a different story, but like that won't reduce the number of Indians coming to the US. It means that the number of Indians coming to the US, they're all going to be not people who get recruited by Infosys. They'll be recruited by Google and OpenAI and Microsoft and these, higher quality tech companies basically that aren't playing these stupid games because they want to hire a specific person, not hire like a, someone to fill a seat and work on a contract. So there's these staffing agencies that have taken advantage of it. I think that's a very logical thing to fix. The other issue is like we have these like the country cap situation, which is just I think totally messed up. So it's kind of like large countries get disadvantaged, and I think that's kind of dumb because national borders are what they are, right? And so that's another factor. There's a third thing that's going on that I think is very problematic. People are not talking about, which is the way to actually help China out is to be racist against Chinese people so that they move back to China.
Buddy, I'm way ahead of you.
And so weirdly enough, the like racist against Chinese people, but sounds tough on China, but it's actually good for China, and China's okay with it. And so if you go look at WeChat, the amount of like, let's call it like Black people jumping elderly Chinese ladies content in like that has been allowed to trend, basically, if that makes any sense. And so with the desire that like, oh yeah, like, you know, families might move back, especially, hey, like we're crushing it at AI with this DeepSeek thing and just like that.
It's decreasing brain drain is what you're saying.
There's a desire to decrease brain drain. And in some sense, they're like getting it to overt racism actually helps these countries decrease brain drain. Even though like people are being mean to them in the United States, counterintuitively. So it's like, if you actually want to be tough on some of these places, you want to steal all their smart people and make them Americanized. Now, I'll go to that next point, which is like the internet is an American triumph, and it basically has essentially made everyone international who speaks some English American or not exactly, but it's like much more than they were before. Like the monoculture of the Anglosphere. I mean, I go and find out that like why are these like right-wing commenters like posting stuff, and they're like I keep finding out they're Canadian, and I'm like why am I seeing Ian Miles Chong posting from Malaysia, and he's like a top conservative, he's a top Republican influencer. I'm like
American politics, right?
He likes the stove, by the way, so I'm pro Ian Miles Chong at this point. But I like
to put him on.
He retweeted a video I did being like, I want this. But the point is like, he's a great example of this. Is like the U.S. is essentially what's the term? Not naturalized. Where am I the right term for it? But basically, the U.S. is essentially like internationalized Americanism, down to our trolls and our political our the biggest trolls of our politics or whatever, which is a truly American tradition. We've made that go international, and these folks, like, if they move to the U.S., I'm sure, like Ian Miles Chong is in some sense like he could go move to L.A. and be probably perfectly happy and not feel like he's, it's not going to be, it wouldn't be a big jump for him, right? So that's the weird thing. Yeah.
But at the same time, you're also talking about idiocracy, right? You're talking about us going into that state. And the question is, how much is that because there is not this high standard of, you could call it like the standard of the WASPs that the Italian and the Irish immigrants and the Jewish immigrants wanted to ingratiate themselves into. The standard isn't there anymore. So what exactly does it mean to be an American, and how different would it be from just having like an infinite amount of Ian Miles Chongs walking the streets?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say as an Italian American who attended Episcopalian church, thus the WASP ingratiation situation is there, right? So, but the point is, I think that there is the issue is the incentives. So the incentives right now are for if we're breeding creatures like Mr. Beast with our current international attention economy. Basically, attention is the thing that actually matters, and so. The problem is that means that we're not necessarily incubating a generation of essentially of like already acclimated badass scientists that as soon as they show up in the United States, like they're naturally going to fit in, right? Like it just happens to be the attention economy is that. I don't know how to rebalance that. I think that's. It's maybe at the point of social media turning into an apocalyptic slop fest, no one pays attention anymore. And we have to filter our stuff through kind of high quality, super intelligent ambassadors to the internet that are machines, basically. Maybe that's what changes it. But currently it's like, yeah, like everyone is already an American who speaks, like everyone who's already an American who's kind of like on the US internet. And hilariously, the incentives are the closest analogy is like a Mr. Beast or an Ian Miles John kind of thing.
Oh man, I don't. Before I get to
even Putin's on the internet, because like Putin's complaining about, like, he's like, oh, the Ukraine is getting, you know, westernized. There's gonna be like 15 genders, and like, you know, I'm like, are you watching Fox News? Like, what's going on here?
Okay, here's the thing. Again, with Putin, he's not on the internet. He's given pieces of paper, like physical pieces of paper, by his staff.
Yeah, but Trump's like that. Trump like signs photos of tweets, like, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Trump is a person next to him who does the tweeting. But when it comes to, okay, before I get to, I want to get to Ben and then Neil, and then we're going to be wrapping it up pretty soon. But I wanted to ask you, related to that, do you even think it's possible to have the kind of futuristic AI structure in place if we don't have and I was actually talking to Neil about this, if we don't have a slave class or a slave caste that just presses buttons all day and maintains this AI infrastructure, and in this scenario there is no reason for there to even be a middle class. You would just have like the Brahmin who are on top, and then the Shudras who are on the bottom.
Is this Yarvinism you're describing, basically?
He, by the way, a friend of the show, Curtis Yarvin. I've had him on many times.
He likes the stove as well. So by the way, so
yeah. There we go. And we are going to be talking about the stove. Don't you worry. But yeah, I am.
We're going to need Miles Chong on the stove. I'm going to slather him in Sweet Baby Ray and put him on there. A nice crispy 350 degrees. Chong's back on the menu, boys.
Chong.
Okay. All right. Sam, by the way, everybody, please subscribe right now. At this moment of elation, I forgot to mention, subscribe right now and buy this coffee, jamandbean.com. BTR10 is the code word. Buy the coffee. It's really, really good. I'm going to put it in the chat. And also patreon.com/breaktherules. Become a patron. But anyway, Sam, do you think that this is the future that we are headed to? And is this inevitable just by the nature of having to maintain this kind of futuristic AI infrastructure?
No, I don't think so. So I think that I think there's like this like sort of neo-feudalist sort of like monarchism that like the Curtis Yarvin sort of folks will describe. I actually think it's sort of a fancy description of like, I'm just a conservative and I'm going to vote Republican, but like I want to make it sound cool. So which is much more of a funny takedown than I think it exists. Also makes it less scary. But the bigger point is, if AI, like I think what we're seeing now is the cost of intelligence is going to go to zero. Everyone's going to be their own emperor. And so there's a weird situation of like, is there going to be an underclass? Because effectively everyone's going to have these insane tools. And so you can say like, yeah, you could have neo-feudalism, but like but does feudalism even work when like, okay, everyone can have their own star system? Like it's a weird outcome of like of this, where like I don't think we're gonna be like, I think we're gonna be destined for some very interesting ideological things closer to like there's going to be it's gonna look like 250 AD in terms of the various cults and stuff like that.
Nice.
But I feel like that we're definitely on target for that. But the era of abundance is here, because effectively the Band-Aid that just got ripped is we prevented ourselves from building shit after the 60s. And we also like psyoped ourselves with stuff like the population bomb and all the other things. The foundational texts of like, I mean, I think that some of these like right-wing thinkers were like, they were like hovering over a potential answer, but it's like, they almost think that, oh, we're going to blow up Western liberalism and it's going to be over. It's like, no, it's just that the foundational texts of like the 70s are getting exploded right now. And that's like, we're going to have energy scarcity forever. You can't build housing in urban areas because that triggers like some slightly retired hippie. Like these sort of things are getting blown up because of effectively like we've now figured out how to grow enough to basically just break that ceiling. I don't necessarily, and so the old regime is over, but the old regime that I'm describing is the old regime of Prop 13, the population bomb, degrowth, like managerial bullshit, like that sort of thing. Not
the
like
managerial
FDR.
revolution.
Yeah, not like FDR, if that makes any sense. And so I think they thought that this would potentially be a much bigger, like, we're going to go back to brutal human nature, and you better trust your techno king warlord of your choice, right? Like, you could be on team Sam Altman, you can be on team Elon Musk, you can be team Zuck, whatever. It's like, I don't think that's the outcome we're going to have. I think there's going to be the opportunity for more people to cosplay as techno king warlords, but I don't think we're going to be in a warlord era, because in some sense the actual things that's getting deconstructed is, it's like we have like Trump talking about permitting reform and like YIMBY's shit, weirdly enough. And so I think that and I think there's quietly a lot of, Democrats that are kind of happy that like they're not resisting him in those certain ways, because it's like, oh yeah, making it easier to site nuclear reactors is probably a good idea. Like, yeah, we'll expand that to include solar and wind when you're out of office next. Like, that's not a big deal. And this is the end of the regime. And in some sense, this is the regime that we all exist under, which is you're not allowed to build anything. And I think that's going to change. At the same time, we're going to get digital post-scarcity immediately. Like, you're going to be able to have like, hey, you want to make an app tomorrow? You literally can just, as long as you can describe that app really well, you'll have that app tomorrow. And that's going to lead to a Cambrian explosion of, I don't even know, like a ton of things. But I don't think it's necessarily going to mean that like there's going to be power concentration in a handful of warlords, with one exception. And so the one exception is, it is also going to be incredibly easy to surveil people at scale and give tailored threats or guidance to people. And if you can basically say, so if you have surveillance, like if you've got cameras everywhere and all this other stuff, like if you have the level of introspection into the population that, like, say, Kim Jong-un does, you could essentially run that all through machines versus needing institutions to do it at that level. Like the labor force required to run a panopticon has dropped substantially. Now, I think there's also the ability to resist the panopticon may have also gone up as well. But there's definitely an open question, and probably this would be a debate for another episode, is can you are we at risk of a one-way door where, hey, when AI lands, will the institutions that are in place today worldwide be unassailable because they will have tools for self-preservation that were impossible, in the past era? And so that's maybe the question. I'm not sure if I have an answer to that question, but that's maybe the question.
Did that convince you, Neil? Because before you were talking about how you see it being more or less inevitable that we're going to have this top-down thing going on. Did that give you any hope? Do you want to push back on anything there?
No, nothing to push back on, but I actually think it is inevitable. If as a this is going to get a little heady here, but like if you think about it, like the end goal, the end result, no matter what, is going to be some unified, what do you call it? Globalistic entity that's going to, if you want to get off this planet and go to another planet, at some point there has to be some sort of collective globalistic regime that's in power. So it's going to have to start somewhere, whether it's here in the U.S., right? Someone's going to have to start that. Someone's going to do it. Mm-hmm. It might be Elon right now. Who knows?
And I actually think that some people may see, and I'm not going to say who may think this, but I do think that some people may see this as an opportunity to create that, like exactly what you just realized. And they may see the opportunity is actually a supranational one. And
you can't do that without having.
And maybe you got to cut a deal, internationally with, certain, other old empires, if that makes any sense, to make this happen.
I don't know. I'm skeptical. Ben, what say you about this?
Yeah, my kind of closing thoughts on it is like, you know, it's like, oh, you can create an app and do this and do that. Like you can create an app in a day or whatever you're talking about, Sam. Like all that stuff is like pretty cool and whatnot. But like, I don't know, like why can no one accept that like this is enough, right? Like there's always a better version of something out there. And if you're always chasing it, then that's exactly what you're doing. What's the point? So like the secret's in the nothing, really.
The cynics have been saying what you're saying since 300 BC.
Since before the Haber-Bosch process was invented.
Yeah.
Well,
and then we created more people than ever existed afterwards.
You know, if we're going to create a new reality in a simulation or whatever, eventually people are just going to want to go into a simulation that looks exactly like a very normal life. And that's so we're destroying.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that
interesting? Of the thing that we're in right now. So what are we doing? Like, why do we?
They're gonna want to simulate like 1922 ranch in the Midwest. Like they want to go back.
As fuck.
Yeah, but people will do that though. I guarantee.
Well, that's the other I think differentiator.
Yeah, genetics and everything. Like people aren't going to want to live in a fucking Rick and Morty world. Like they're going to want to live in something that's some normalcy.
Yeah. Well, this is the other question, Ben. So you're in California right now, and Sam, I know that you want to build a lot more housing in California, and maybe I'm of a certain bad mindset about this, but I personally like having a house that's, a lot of space around, trees, squirrels, chipmunks, raccoons, and and they're all my friends, and not having to be on top of other people. That's just me. I don't know, like, Ben, what your opinion on that is, because that also seems to be like the divide today between, like, I guess the NIMBYs and the YIMBYs, if we could put it that way.
Yeah, Trump seems to be a NIMBY, by the way. I want to throw that out there. He hates windmills. He loves the whales. So what?
Yeah, this is a key realization.
Yeah, so
he's a damn
my
NIMBY.
view is,
and Young said, if a man does not spend time in nature, then he is severed from his own soul. I think those are his words exactly.
Yeah.
So you can't live in a big concrete box and have a government food tube that a bunch of brown goo comes out of that you suck on while you play with your iPad laying on your back like a ladybug.
That's the future, though. It's kind of messy. It's kind of disturbing a little bit, isn't it?
The thing is, you can do that in a single family house built the same as all the other single family houses next to you in your neighborhood. Because that's also the future. That's also the future is like you're going to have to move to a flyover state, which is the only place where we're allowed to build stuff anymore, or Texas, because Texas has figured this out. But you're going to live in a Lennar community. Your home is going to look the same as your neighbor's house. It's not going to have a sweet stove because it's going to have some $1,000 stove they put in there. No, I'm joking. But
Carl,
you're going to live in
Go ahead.
You're gonna live in one of these communities, and like it, and everything will be it'll be box checking and relatively abundant and relatively nice. And the school district's probably gonna be good and all this other stuff. But it's still kind of this. But you're still gonna be on your iPad. You're still gonna be sitting on your ass. The internet will still have won.
Yeah,
and you could be in perfect manicured suburbia, but the internet will still have won.
Carl Jung ended his days in the mountains of Bavaria in his own built house, just studying text in his library with maids taking care of him. I mean, I think he
taking care of him, if you know what I mean. But,
right? Yeah. Who knows? But people were visiting him. Like there was a physicist who, like, Nobel Prize physicist dude, who like went to visit him to like get to have him like this. He was like the old sage. The old wizard sage that everyone went to go visit for knowledge and wisdom. Like that was like Jung's end career. He was that guy.
That'll be
who doesn't want to be that guy
in the future.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be like.
And maybe Ben, after daughters graduated, had a job or whatever, and maybe you guys could settle down somewhere in the mountains, just have like a better existence there. But I do see Sam's point that if you do have a lot of people who are, regardless of their nice backyard, if they're going to spend all that time ignoring the nature, ignoring the raccoons, and just focusing on their iPads and Neuralink, then is there really a difference for them? And for the people who are like you, then you're smart enough to figure out, what you want. And it's not like everybody's going to be forced, right, Sam? It's not like everybody's going to be forced.
No, yeah,
to live
exactly.
In these 15-minute
I'm
cities.
not forcing you to live in a 15-minute city. I'm not forcing you to live in a high rise. it's actually the weird problem is the reason people. I'm not saying not people are not like you, but people like the NIMBYs don't want those high rises to exist. Is not because it's actually because they know deep down they know people want to live there. They just don't want their house price to go down because now that's an option for someone else to move there. They want to enforce the scarcity because we've essentially set up bad incentives in the US system to incentivize stasis. Instead of saying you should be buying Vanguard, Target Retirement, 2060, whatever, which instead of doing that, you're supposed to put all your money in the house. And if you put all your money in your house, well, the best way to increase the value of your house is for there to be less houses in your area, but your area to be nice. And so the NIMBY incentives are pretty crazy. And then if you're California, well, you lock in the property tax at your purchase date. And so suddenly there's no stick from the government to say, hey, by the way, if you don't do anything interesting with this land, your taxes will go up, and you should probably figure out you should sell it if you don't value it that much. And so California set up the most fucked up incentive structure ever, where it's like it's illegal to build new stuff because we set up all these environmental rules. Any neighbor can go and veto anything by just showing up to a city meeting, kind of UK style. And then additionally, the incentives are the best way to get rich is not to build a tech company, but to have bought a house in the 70s and pay $200 a month on property taxes. And so my point is, if the ancient regime or the old regime is failing in the Curtis Yarvin, sort of way, it's actually this one that's failing, not like NATO. Not like institutions we built kind of in the FDR era. It's actually the stuff we did in reaction to high oil prices and and weird environmental and degrowth shit from the 70s. The 70s are over, is the point. Despite the fact that we're in a new 70s with different wackiness.
That's a very interesting point. The one counter, and we are going to go really soon, the one counter I would offer to this is that the environment that people are in also, I think, affects how they act. This is why I'm very much in favor of there being more statues, like good statues. I'm talking about like statues that are like the ancient Greek and ancient Roman, just scatter a bunch of statues everywhere. Just have people look at them. Because I generally think that there's so much stuff out there that people look at on a daily basis that completely degrades their existence. And same thing with, being more around things that look good, like more trees and more nature. And if the buildings are to be built, make them good. But I could also see the idea of, the picturesque, nice village. Same point you brought up about the boomers who don't really care about that. They just care about making money. Fair enough. My only counterpoint to that would be for the families that are not in that situation, that actually want to grow their family, grow their kin, have something that they want to pass on. That to me is a whole different situation. And if there was some way for them to be able to do that, while for social Darwinism to work out in the right way for the people who wouldn't really take full advantage of living that way, then fine, they can live in the towers or whatever. But like for the people who actually want to
I just think it was like, we need to be able to...
Yeah.
You need to be able to build stuff, and you need to be able to have choices, and like building a family and building like a compound, the OG like Chinese model of like, hey, we'll just build a family compound with like a center courtyard. We should make that legal, but too bad that's against building codes. But we can make it legal. And so I think it's like, if you want to live in a high rise with a cool penthouse view, you can live in a high rise with a cool penthouse view.
Yeah, no, I could see, I definitely see what you're talking about here. So before we go, we have a super chat from King of Biltong, $30. Thank you so much. Add some healthy, high-protein snacks to your diet. Biltong is packed with B12, creatine, iron, zinc, and much, much more. Get yourself some Biltong at biltongusa.com. And listen, guys, this is a sponsor of BTR. This is my personal endorsement. I am a Biltong fiend. I'm a Biltong addict. I eat this all the time. Here, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Ben, do you know about the glory of Biltong yet?
I think I ate a bunch of it in your apartment.
That's right. Yes, you did.
This is like, it's like Filipino beef jerky, basically.
South African beef jerky.
South African. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I've had this before. It is very good.
I'll eat anything really. So, but it was very good.
And look here, Bison and kangaroo.
Having killed a kangaroo in my past era, it's good meat. We ran one over when I was in a car.
It kept me nourished when I was in New York City with Lev.
Mm-hmm. And use code word BTR for 10% off. And my favorite, probably, I love these, by the way, the Angus Biltong sticks, because they have this nice fat that's on them, and you could just, the saying, chewing the fat, where you can like literally chew the fat while you're working. Look at these glumps of fat over here.
Let's get some cumin on there. So like cumin is very, very underrated. As someone who, loves eating Western Chinese food, it's
pure energy.
It's awesome.
And something that I think I like even better, but it's honestly hard to choose. These two over here, you have the cabanosi, it's called. It's like an Italian thing. This special mixture of meats were reworked by artisans using traditional curing methods, spicing the meat with our locally sourced and in-house created spice blends. We use only natural sheep casing for all our artisan-made dried sausages, ensuring the highest quality final products. Then we produce an authentic cabanasi that is dried to perfection for your eating pleasure. So, it's a Polish cured sausage. Yeah, so guy, I'm telling you, if you open a bag, it's going to be gone like in like half an hour. And same thing with these natural Angus drovers. These are so good, so delicious. They have like a nice snap to them when you eat them. And I think this is like a authentic, like South African sausage over here. No antibiotics, high in protein, good for keto, good source of iron, nourishing, good for cardiovascular health. So guys, I'm telling you right now, biltongusa.com. How much more do I need to say it? Go there and type in code word BTR, and you're going to support the show. And if you think that's all, you are wrong. We have over here Jam and Bean Coffee Company. This is my new sponsor. If you put in code word BTR10, you are going to get 10% off of their coffee. And I guarantee you guys, this is going to be the best coffee that you guys have ever had in your life. And also for the tea drinkers out there, because it's the evening time, I had some of this winter solstice blend over here. I had this for the stream. And we got, what do we got? We got apples, apricot, rosemary, cloves, orange. We got all of this wintry goodness for you in this nice package for you to enjoy, and you help to support the show. And you know what else helps support the show? Patreon.com/breaktherules. Become a patron today. Listen, I don't know what you guys are doing if you're not becoming a patron, especially all of you people in New York, because for all the $20 plus patrons, we have, and Neil, you've been to one of these, we have live events live in the New York City studio with a rooftop, mind you.
Best Patreon deal I've ever heard of.
Absolutely. And you get to watch how the sausage is made. You get to see the recording, and it's also for the patrons as well. They could watch online too, but it's much better in person. So if you are going to be around the New York City area, become a patron today. Join us. There's after parties that happen afterwards. Right now, we're figuring out the next Jason Trajani one that we're going to have. So it's all in progress, and it's all thanks to your support. I really, really appreciate you guys watching this, and I really, really appreciate you guys being here today, having an amazing conversation about technology. The poor Shroud, we barely touched that Shroud. We talked about it in the beginning. No, but I think we're all like in agreement about what's going on with the Shroud. I mean, with Jesus, that's a whole other thing, but we have gone incredibly introspective today, which I'm always happy about. What is next for you, Ben?
What do you mean, what's next for me?
You know what I'm talking about. What's the next show and products, and it's chilling time. You know the drill.
You can go to benavery.live if you're into live streams at all, and I don't know, patreon.com/lemon party if you like podcasts, so that's more your thing. I do a 5-hour live stream every Wednesday. It's free on X, YouTube, Twitch, and then after 24 hours, it goes behind a paywall on my website. I do that every week. I present the show. I curate the content. It's fun.
benavery.live. So everybody go to benavery.live. I'm posting the link in the chat here for those who have not followed Ben. And, of course, Lemon Party. These are two of my favorite podcasts of all time now. I always listen to them. Ben has kindled inside of me a passion I didn't know I had for obese people. So
and birds, maybe, unless you already loved birds.
Well, I have a bird feeder, and I had a bird cam that I tried one time when Curtis Yarvin was on the stream, and that was pretty good, but it's like it failed sometimes, so I'm probably not going to do it anymore. But yeah, I love birds, and I love the obese people, especially Big Country. Big Country for me is a truly great experience. I hope Rich Parchy. I hope that you guys make enough money with Lemon Party that you're going to be able to hire like a whole agency to, track every movement of Big Country. And if something, God forbid,
I hire people to gang stalk Big Country.
God forbid, no, because God forbid something happens to him, you guys will be right there to resuscitate him, take him to the hospital. Like, you're going to be his guardian angels who are going to look out for him and make sure that he keeps making more content.
Bless this mess.
Yeah. Wait, Sam, you don't know who Big Country is, right? And not Neil, you don't.
Why would he do that? You should be apologizing to them for having to talk to me on this show. These are some of the most knowledgeable, capable people.
No, you're good, dude.
I'm a fool. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm nothing.
No, but Ben, could you tell them about Big Country for the last thing? The last thing.
He's just a fat guy that caught my eye, and I kind of just been obsessed with him for some reason for like a year and a half. He just kind of eats in his car, and he sounds retarded. I don't really know. He makes me laugh a lot, and I can't get enough of the guy.
And that's the joy that Big Country brings to a lot of people. And obviously, I'm not going to play, because
he fries chicken, he eats the skin off of the chicken, and he goes, "Best part of chicken."
Yeah, this is him. I just wanted to show you. I'm not gonna play anything, but here he is with his wife, and they have a mukbang. They take some of the food out here. They get some burgers.
He actually has lost some weight. Good for him.
Yeah, it's good. He has
by the way, I want to say that on the left, that's his. That's not the husband. That's his wife. On the left, on the right is the husband.
Oh God. Yeah.
Like
okay, all right, Ben, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming. Sam, what do you have cooking up next? Oh, cooking up. Speaking of cooking up. Oh my God,
puns involved here.
My God. Okay, no, we got to talk about the stove before we go. What is wrong with me? So please tell us about this amazing stove of yours. And I'm putting the link right here. Yeah.
Yeah. So run this company called Impulse. We're at impulselabs.com. We basically build the highest performance stove ever made. It's like 3 times more powerful than any other stove in the market, effectively. And we do that because we shove a high power battery inside the stove. So the stove is both plugged in, but it is also powered by a battery. The battery boosts the power way above what everyone else can do. And we did a bunch of cool stuff with temperature control and other things. So like you can set a pan to 350 degrees and like your butter doesn't burn. And you can fry an egg like that and not have to adjust the knob or anything like that. You can sous vide on the stove with no accessories. You can cook chocolate like that with no problem. You can deep fry a turkey on it. I've done that before. And like it's easy to clean. You can pull the knobs off. You can wipe it. And we're shipping in literally weeks. Already in a bunch of houses.
How many of these do you have in stock?
We can build an arbitrary number of these. So we basically have built a pretty amazing consumer electronics supply chain around this. So if you order it now, you'll get it in like April or something like that, based on kind of current estimates. And then additionally, so that's like you buy this really cool stove. It's just way more capable than every other stove. Like you can see in this comparison slide here, like we can boil a liter of cold water in 37 seconds, which is sort of insane. And it runs in a normal 120 volt plug if you need to. So if you have a gas stove, you can literally rip your old stove out. You can just plug this in. You don't have to get an electrician. But if you install it on 240, it's actually putting that battery on the grid. So it's both a stove and like a power wall in one product. Wow. And that's kind of part of our master plan, which is to sprinkle battery storage across the grid in every device that's already in your house. So we make the devices more awesome. So you buy them, but then we're putting a battery on the grid. And then that deploys a global distributed power plant out of literally stoves, which is sort of ridiculous.
What's next?
It's for sale now. It says it's $6,000 the web.
Yeah.
It's $6,000 on the website, but don't complain.
Okay. I'm not going to be a
complainer.
complainer.
The feds will give you 30% back on a tax credit.
Really?
That's not bad. That's not a bad deal.
What happened? The feds will give you 30% off. And so and Trump has not taken that away yet. So your time is limited.
Yeah, there we go. And the next step, I think, logically would be to have Big Country be one of the first people on YouTube to rep the stove. Cook it his own
a free one.
Yeah,
We can make.
He can
gizzards.
deep fry a turkey indoors, and it won't catch his house on fire.
He'll deep fry his dog. I mean, that guy.
Nice.
I need to get my favorite streamer was the Chinese guy Pangzai, who does like all the drinking stunts.
Love him.
I need to go to Hebei and go to his restaurant when I go to China next. That's like on my list of things to do.
Nice.
But I know Donnie from Barstool who did that. So that was. I was like, I ran into Donnie in Shanghai, and he was like, "I'm gonna go see Pangzai," and I'm like, "Wait," I was like, "I wish I could come. I would otherwise try to tag along." He probably would have let me. It would have been crazy.
So Zero here is asking, could I use this outside?
Yeah, it's not waterproof, but it'll work outside. So like you could just like put it in a cart and wheel it outside if you wanted to. It would work outside.
Nice. Yeah, so people are loving the stove, as I knew they would, and I cannot wait until BTR makes enough money so that I can get the stove too. So
I need to have podcasts. I need to have streaming specific coupons, but we'll work on that later.
Yeah. I mean, you could cut maybe some kind of deal with, you know who the stove would be really popular with. I think it'll be really popular with a lot of the Bronze Age mindset people, because a lot of them are
it's not stainless steel works.
Yeah.
And it does non-stick. You can set it to like 300 something degrees and the egg doesn't stick. So you can cook with your non-seed oils.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need Teflon pans for non-stick. I don't know. You can eat all your primal cuts without, the pain and suffering of using a gas stove.
There we go.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, there's so many possibilities
No
here.
plastics.
And there we go, guys. No plastics. So amazing. Sam, I am so happy that you came on today. This is the very first time you came on. I would love to have you back, man. You have a wonderful energy about you. It's great to talk to
Thanks
you.
Thanks a lot.
And Neil,
maybe we'll complete the Shroud story.
Yeah.
Yes, one day. Neil, what do you have cooking?
I have a 4-hour documentary that's about to come out very soon, almost done, about late Roman antiquity religion. And it's basically showing a trend that the Romans were really interested in Eastern stuff. They were interested in Egyptian religion, Christianity and Judaism. They were interested in Arabian religion. Dusharis was the cult. The Phrygian religion of Attis and Cybele, the Adonis religion of Syria. They were interested in Mithraism, which comes out of Persia and Cilician area. But that dominated the last century of Roman paganism. That was all everyone cared about was Eastern shit. No one gave a shit about the traditional Olympian gods anymore. That was that's Grandpa's religion. So like that's what the video is about, and it turned out to be 4 hours long for whatever reason. A lot of stuff to get.
They could have gotten one-shotted by Confucianism, but I think they didn't. Like they kind of fucked up sending ambassadors that far.
Right. They were talking to the Han Dynasty though. That was a thing. But it was mostly through the Greeks, mostly through Persia and the Silk Road.
And the next video that's going to come out on BTR very, very soon, I'm finalizing the editing on this thing. I just want to put some more images in, is the video with you and me, Neil, and Survive the Jive. And that one was a really, really good video. We talked about the practical aspects of a lot of this pagan worship that we were talking about before, how it was created in the original video, which you guys could see when you go in BTR. You see the original Survive the Jive video. It's really good. Highly recommended. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, as always. From myself, Lev Polyakov, Ben Avery, Sam D'Amico, Gnostic Informant, be sure to smash that subscribe button, add a like, click the bell. The bell is extremely important. Patreon.com/breaktherules. I'm going to see you guys later. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.